not even open a window. Very cold. You know? Huh? Cool. Yeah. Maybe, I said maybe. Maybe. That's all.
Good evening, everyone.
But again,
Good evening, everyone. We're at our monthly meeting in November, and we have the roll call. I'll call roll. Zone 1, Zone 2, here. Zone 3, here. Zone 4, here. And the mayor's present. Ceremonial matters, which will be our legislative prayer. Tonight's prayer will be brought to us by Reverend Roderick King. He is the pastor of the Church of God in Christ on Church Street. So, you all stand. Whereas Hurricane Milton brought an unprecedented challenge to our beloved city. You can stand up and come up. Come on up and look at the folks. The Hurricane Milton brought unprecedented challenges to our beloved city of Lake Helen, disrupting the lives of our citizens and damaging vital infrastructure. And whereas the restoration of power is crucial for the health, safety, and well-being of our community, and whereas Billy McClure demonstrated exceptional leadership, dedication, and tireless efforts in coordinating and executing the restoration of power throughout the city. Whereas, thanks to Billy's unwavering commitment and swift actions, power was restored to all residents within just 8 days of the hurricane's landfall, bringing light and hope back to our community. Whereas Billy's efforts exemplifies the spirit of resilience and collaboration that defines the city of Lake Helen, I now, therefore, Vernon Burton, Mayor of the city of Lake Helen, do hereby proclaim this day, November 14, 2024, as Billy McClure Day in the city of Lake Helen, honoring him for his remarkable contributions during Thank you again. Appreciate you. You want to say something?
Yeah, sure, please do. So, it's a group effort, right? You know, Ricky's calling me about the wells, Alan's calling me about the trees. It's fortunate that they put me here since '04, and, you know, I love coming back and helping the group. This is awesome. You know, it's not needed, but I really appreciate it.
I do not live in Lake Helen, and I wouldn't have power if I lived there. His goal is to go to Lake Helen, so.
Billy, I did send a memo to your supervisor. Hopefully they passed that on to you and the file.
Now we come to the very crucial part of our meeting, which is the oath of office will be administered by clerk. Clerk, not here.
I've got Charlene has someone in my
With one of you at a time. And, yeah, okay. Yes, ma'am. Raise your hand. Yeah.
I thought he was born first.
Right.
going too fast.
Last time I had to do that was in the military.
You have to remember that, right? I will support, protect, and defend
I will support, protect, and defend
the Constitution, states,
the Constitution and the government of the United States
and the state of Florida
and the state of Florida
against all enemies, domestic or foreign,
against all enemies, domestic or foreign,
and I will bear true faith, loyalty, and allegiance to the same,
and I will bear true faith, loyalty, and allegiance to the same.
and I am entitled to hold office under the Constitution,
And I am entitled to hold office under the Constitution,
fully perform all duties of the office of City Commissioner of the City of Lake Helen.
right that part.
I will faithfully perform the office of City Commissioner
I will faithfully perform all duties of the office of Commissioner
of the City of Lake Helen,
of the City of Lake Helen,
of which I am about to enter, so help me God.
of which I'm about to enter, so help me God.
Congratulations.
No, the city won't.
Anyone else?
It won't work. No, I got people.
You got people? You got people?
Whoa, we got a lot of people.
You got people?
That's good.
It's good to have people. Don't need some. Alan retired. I, Valerie Sherman Bishop,
Do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support,
that I will support,
protect, and defend
protect, and defend
the Constitution
the Constitution
and government of the United States
and government of the United States
and of the state of Florida
and of the state of Florida
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
domestic or foreign, and that I will
and that I will
bear true faith,
bear true faith,
loyalty, and allegiance
loyalty, and allegiance
to the same,
to the same,
and that I am entitled to hold office
and entitled to hold office
under the Constitution,
under the Constitution,
and I will faithfully perform
and I will faithfully perform
all duties of the office of Commissioner
all duties of the office of Commissioner
of the City of Lake Helen,
of the City of Lake Helen,
on which I'm about to enter,
on which I'm about to enter,
so help me God.
so help me God. And it's charter for you.
Again. Next item on the agenda will be the F-Rock update. We skipped one thing. No, stay there, stay there. Are there any deletions or modifications that need to be made?
I have an addition for several, if you don't mind.
Yes, ma'am.
One, I would like to add the citywide yard sale that's proposed for the December date under old business or new business, wherever you want it.
What numbers would you see?
Could we just do it between 6 and 7? Is that okay?
On the consent agenda? Okay. What's the title, please?
Where do you want it?
No, that's when you have to public forum.
Okay, after, yeah, put it before public forum.
Before public forum?
Yes,
Okay.
so it'll just be like a number 7. Okay, and then that would be the citywide yard sale, to answer your question, that was presented in October for the December dates. And then, I just wanted to put what I'm going to bring up on my reports by zone into the air, see many pondered. The first being the Volusia County Building Moratorium next week, and then several events that are local, and pending the conversation Woodward concurrent this evening, a possible workshop for flooding. Thank you.
You remember that, right?
Yes, I've got it all. I just wanted to announce it,
Okay.
so it's not easy.
Yes?
I've also added something that can be discussed after we do the Woodward Corner presentation. It's for handling flooding problem on North High Street.
update.
Good evening. First, I'd like to congratulate both of you for retaining your seat, and also thank you for deciding to do another term of public service. It's appreciated. All right, well, the EFRA will recover, I'm sorry.
Give us your name.
I'm sorry. My name is Helen. I am with Your Girl Friday Consulting Firm.
Thank you.
EFROC is the Florida Recovery Obligation Calculation. This is something that the state of Florida has decided to do to streamline the FEMA grant process. The reason why they began this process is because they needed better standards, there was accuracy issues, and they needed to be more reactive to the governments and other tribals and nonprofits in returning their funds to them. So they've made it down to 4 items that they needed to address. That's standardization, making sure everything is same across the board, procurement, procedures, and assessment. The reason why, so when you opted in to this program, it is broken down into 5 different categories. For the disaster readiness assessment is where you get your score for the category. The categories are contract administration, procurement, policy and procedure, documentation, and applicant experience. Over the past months, I gathered all of the information that the city had on file. I also created a few items as well. In the staff report that you have in your packet, it lays out all of the different items that need to be addressed. I'm not going to bore the entire room with each item. Also, I will be coming back after the program has completed their review of the DRA, which was submitted on October 30th. As of today, they have requested more information, and I will be taking care of that within the next week. After we receive their assessment, they will request an abatement plan. The abatement plan will include the items that you need to address as a city. When I have that, I will come back, we'll lay everything out and explain what needs to be done, because there will be policies and procedures that the city will need to address as it goes forward. I honestly do not have anything further until I have the review of all of the information that I entered. So unless you have any questions,
Did you explain the
DRA is
DRA.
disaster readiness assessment. That's what they're looking at to find out how ready you are, how in line you are with the FEMA and Florida state regulations, procedures, and policies.
And does this completion expedite any funds to us?
Absolutely. The higher the score, the amount of funds that are directly streamlined directly to the city. 80% is the highest thing. 80 is the score, but that causes 80% of your reimbursement to be streamlined.
Thank you. And this is the first time we've done this, right?
This is the first time you've done this. This is the first time a lot of people are doing it, so it is quite interesting to watch, and I'm excited to see how it plays out.
Thank you very much.
Mayor, if I could just add
Yes,
to
sir.
that. Con also has been the point person involving the Milton process, getting our initial paperwork filed with FEMA, and the reports are starting to come in from the debris company, involving the pickup. As of today, we were about 8,200 cubic yards. We still got some areas that we're looking at meeting with around. But anybody who watches the video, anybody you talk to, if they have not got something out to the curb, they need to get it out as soon as possible. The goal is to be done by Thanksgiving. And with looking at the weather, I don't want to, because those big steady models give me a stomachache. Thinking of additional rain and what could happen in terms of that, but the The goal again is for them to be done in Lake Helen by Thanksgiving, so if you don't have it in the front, get it out as quick and as soon as you can. Because once they do that final pass through, then be on your own for disposal at that point.
And that Thanksgiving deadline that we self-imposed, it predates the governor's
Mandate by the governor is January 12th.
Okay,
So
so
we
that's
will,
our-
we will be well ahead of the governor's mandate.
Thank you.
Sorry, I do have a question for Ms. Evans, in regards to the, I'm sorry, I just missed my note on it here. It was about wheels, and I was wondering, what language is required, is that something that we need to come up with as a commission?
Yes, basically, this includes any type of emergency measures or donations, meaning if you have staff that is working beyond or outside of the normalcy, and you're feeding them, or you have volunteers that are coming in and feeding them, they want to see that you have a policy already set that says when these items come up, this is how you are going to handle it, instead of just, deciding to do it off the cuff.
Okay, and is that something that you would be able to provide suggestions for?
Absolutely, as a matter of fact, I already have provided the suggestion, the reason why I went and gave it to them, because they will review it and they will let us know if that's
Perfect.
acceptable.
Okay.
And then I will present it to you.
Great, thank you.
Anyone else? Roger? Oh, they're gonna be coming out. Woodward and Corn, this is the discussion?
Well, they got their presentation and mine was for afternoon.
Okay, thank you. Come on.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Amanda Boone, and I am a project engineer and project manager with Woodard and Curran. And just wanted to talk to you a little bit this evening about what we are proposing to do for you in regards to stormwater. So first of all, I do want to acknowledge that you have a completed master plan. And you also have some current areas of concern, and I drove around this evening and did see some of those. What we are proposing, though, is that we move into the next step, which is to do a facility plan. And the reason that we are suggesting to do that is a few things, and we'll talk about that in a minute. We're also hoping to be completing for you a vulnerability assessment. We have a grant application into FDEP, and we hope to hear about that soon. And then in the future, we would propose to leverage any work that we would do now for you to then be built upon and improved based on any additional information that becomes available. So one of the things you may ask is, why is the facility on a master plan? And that is a very fair question. It's about funding. Quite honestly, the Florida Department of Environmental Protection sets forth some very specific requirements. They say the document has to have these things in it. There's a checklist that we have to go down and make sure all those items are accounted for. And by checking all those boxes, having a facility plan that FDEP can accept, it opens doors for you for future implementation dollars. So that's what we're looking to do, is make sure you have alternate funding sources available to you to pay for these projects that desperately need to be done. Now, the master plan that's been done does provide a great starting point. We would utilize the work done in that master plan in conjunction with input from the city to identify the areas of concern that are going to be evaluated in that facility plan. Now, we also talk about vulnerability assessment. Pardon me, the printout is a little out of order from what I was prepared for.
Sorry.
That's okay. So, again, you kind of think, well, if we're doing a vulnerability assessment, what's the correlation between a vulnerability assessment and a master plan, or a facility plan, excuse me. Vulnerability assessment, same sort of thing, it's coming out of the Resilient Florida program, has a very prescriptive nature for it. And it's going to look at the overall risk of flooding across the entire city. And so we're proposing to leverage the work that's done in the vulnerability assessment to take the facility plan to kind of what I would call the next level. Facility plans don't typically have detailed modeling done with them. They can be very high level. They check the boxes, but they don't give you a whole lot of real world solutions that you can potentially evaluate. By coupling the work that we do on the vulnerability assessment, specifically the modeling, and the work that's required for the facility plan, we can provide a better overall assessment of the entire city and zone in on those specific areas of concern. So the last thing is that the vulnerability assessment, in looking at the whole drainage basin, can provide us some additional insight to make sure that what we are looking at for areas of concern matches up with what we see in real life. So that is my very brief presentation. I suspect that you have questions, and I am happy to answer them.
I have a question. Future impact issues, how are you assessing future impact of the storm or the storm water not being able to move efficiently?
So it's a little bit of both. So when we look at doing the vulnerability assessment will look at 6 different scenarios. It will look at what a lot of people call a 100-year event and a 500-year event. It'll look at what those events do in the current year, a near planning horizon such as the year 2050, and it'll also look at a future year event such as the 2080. So that is what we would be proposing as a current 2050 and 2080 for both the 100-year and 500-year storms on the vulnerability. With the facility plan, we could use that precipitation data to inform that as well. But when you talk about what projects you want to do in the future and what things you want to implement, that level of is really your call. And we can certainly get into the uncertainty that's associated with future planning horizons and larger storms. There's a lot more unknowns, but some people feel better saying, no, I want to design for a 500-year event instead of a 100-year event. That's a level of service call that is up to the community.
Has there ever been an assessment, I've heard it assessed this as a 500-year storm that Milton was that something, I mean, how do they assess that storm as being a 500-year storm as opposed to a 100-year storm?
Right, so it's a lot about the precipitation, the amount of precipitation you get over what period of time. So in Florida, somewhere in the ballpark, depending on where in the state you are, because we have a lot of spatial variability in our rainfall patterns, but say a 100-year event in a good portion of the state is 12 inches of rain in 24 hours. 500 is going to be greater than that. It might be closer to 18. And then you start to get more rain, and then you're talking about a larger event. So it's a statistical analysis, but it is correlated to how many inches of rain in a 24-hour period.
But any chance do you remember the 2010 storm?
No, sir.
Okay, it's 26 inches.
A lot of rain.
That was last one.
I have a question. You stated that you run around our city today and that you took a look.
Very briefly, but
Oh,
yes.
it was, okay, so it was a brief one, because I was probably gonna ask you for some details.
I do not have any at this time. If we go into doing a facility plan and even in doing the vulnerability assessment as well, there's an amount of data collection, and a lot of that is going to be some knowledge from the city of, okay, where are these specific areas that you've had issues? Let's talk about them on the map, what happens, so we can use that to inform what we're doing.
Okay, the reason I was gonna ask for some details is I was really wondering, based on what I've seen, and I've been around the city quite a bit,
so that's something that has to be considered, and that does make for some more, thoughtful solutions have to be determined.
So what is your time frame and possibly having everything pulled together?
I am going to default to your city manager on that one.
I think on an agreement that we're looking, I think there was like an 8-month
Yes.
timeframe that you were looking to get back with us, and that is the facility side, and then also that helps track the funding. So we're not throwing away or wasting the money that was spent with the other company in developing the plan. But the facilities plan will help us get in line to go after state and federal funding to help pay for that. Now, keep in mind, folks, when I say state and federal funding, nobody pays 100%. So, it's still gonna be a significant investment on the part of the city. But at least based on the document that I did with them today, we applied for a $200,000 grant from the county. Today was the deadline. And if that's done, then that would be the grant that would fund the facilities. Am I correct on that, Mike?
Yeah, correct.
And Lynn also too, while the young lady speaking today might have been her first time in Lake Helen, but Ryan, who's with Woodard and Curran, he was out prior to Milton. He's been out post-Milton, I think, twice. And on the day of the hurricane, I was out with Rick and took numerous pictures and videos. And last Thursday, which was almost a month later, we went to all the same areas. So actually, I handed Con a thumb drive tonight with all of that for FEMA, so they will get the same documentation and information. So they're more aware than maybe what she saw tonight, just in coming in and driving around, in the sense of Ryan has seen more of the impact, especially on the roadway over there at Pennsylvania Church, and we got, Michigan, we got East Ohio, in addition to, Roger mentioning North High Street. So, well, I want to give them credit in the sense that, so maybe her first time coming before us, but it's not their first time getting boots on the ground here in Lake Helen.
My concern is that the water's still rising. So,
Yeah, in fact, I saw a report the other day that the St. John's still has not crested, and they're giving flood warnings in the Astor area. And I know that's away from us, but that all eventually affects the groundwater, and you are right. I think both Lake Helen and, which in turn, Lake Harlan, are still creeping up versus going down. And as we've talked, there's nowhere to pump the water to.
thank you.
You're welcome.
So, given that we've had a representative out a couple of times, I know, one of the areas that have been looked at was the North High Street, area that's been flooded. And also, we have, around the lakes, very much. Is there anything you can provide to us in, educationally to address those immediate needs?
It's okay to say that.
Yeah, not offhand, and, stormwater's my area of expertise, and one of the things that I always worry about when we talk about, well, let's just go do something, somebody says, let's just go do something over here. But you may move the problem, and that's always the concern, is you don't wanna take it from here and move it over here because you didn't solve anything. So, I can certainly understand the frustration with how much water is in this town at this time. I don't have a good solution for you right this minute, I'm sorry.
Okay, and is there, I know we talked about an 8-month for the facilities management plan. Is there more of a shortened timeline since this is so imminent? I mean, we're not even to the end of hurricane season yet. And, we have several ideas we're brainstorming here, but as an expert in the field, is there a shorter timeline you can provide for that?
So we're trying to get you a more detailed facility plan and what's required by the state. What they require is a very high level. We're trying to take it to the next level, and to do that, we need to do it in conjunction with the vulnerability assessment. We don't have a decision on the state for the funding for that yet, so there's no money allocated to do that at this time. That vulnerability assessment is going to provide that additional modeling to really look at some solutions and see what's going to work in what locations. I have a goal to expedite that vulnerability assessment so that you can then be eligible for some funding next go around. because there's only so much we can do in a short period of time. So I hate to promise something I can't keep.
I understand, thank you.
So we are trying to expedite it, but there's a few puzzle pieces that are missing for me to commit to do that I can expedite that.
I appreciate that. The one thing that I'm struggling with is that we still have roadways that are flooded, and to me, that feels unacceptable this far out from the very beginning. And every, and this is obviously not something that we can deal, just by thoughts about this situation. We're over a month out, and I have people that still have water in their homes, and I'm running into roadblocks every which way I can. I don't like telling them, sorry, you're stuck with it. So, I appreciate that you're working on it and trying to expedite it. Thank you for that. Well, I'm gonna continue on my end looking. Hopefully, it's a great partner.
And exactly what Mr. Gleason was saying, if the St. John's is still staged up, and that's kind of ultimately where the water goes, if water runs into a wall of water, it doesn't go anywhere. It's unfortunate, and that's the tailwater condition that you have at the time. Sorry.
One of the recent suggestions that we had was possibly something to deep which then goes into the St. John's so effectively does nothing. Like you said, it moves from one location to another. And so, another roadblock.
Yes.
It's okay. We can have 1,000 failed ideas, folks. Keep giving them to us. We only need one to work.
We want to give you a good one.
When our master plan was developed, and like you said, there's a lot of things that you're adding to it, on them, so the funding and the assessments and stuff like that, and what to do. They had a lot of good ideas in the master plan, but a lot of it dealt with putting the water on somebody else's property, which I was totally against. And I started doing research and came up with a couple alternatives on places where the city needed to buy. And it was supposed to be as an addendum to the master plan, but after talking with a bunch of the citizens after Milton, apparently it was not added. So if you need that information, I can give it to you. And the proposal, one of the proposals I got here is in addition to it, that follows the same process that I used in finding the other spots. Because as we go through, we're not going to be allowed to flood somebody else's place. We have to have a place to put the water. And one of the things the state is going for is they want as much water to remain in your community as possible to recharge your aquifer. So
Again, one of the good things of doing the vulnerability assessment and the facility plan side by side in conjunction with each other is when we do the vulnerability assessment, we don't just look at the assets. Yes, we look at the critical assets, and the risk of flooding for those assets is kind of the primary focus. However, we're also looking at the parcels and the roadways. So kind of from the holistic standpoint of if you have this asset, let's say it's a lift station, okay? Let's say you have a lift station or you have an emergency operations center, whatever that asset is, and it's sitting on a parcel that's 100% inundated during an event, or the roadway to get there is completely flooded out and you can't get there. Well, just because the asset's high and dry, it may not be fully functional if the parcel and the roadway are flooded. So we'll have that information as well, so we'll be able to see that parcel inundation, and that coupled with the information that, yes, please provide to your city administrator so that that gets passed along to us would be appreciated. Because sometimes more land is needed for these solutions. I've had my own pumping stations that I've had to own and operate in other jurisdictions. They don't always work as well as I wanted them to. And they're expensive.
I have another question. One thing that I've been researching and talking with some folks about is the possibility of evaporation ponds and surface aeration using commercial aerating machines. I'm not sure if you're super familiar with the document research from Fresno State and Cal Poly on that, but they have like an evaporation rate study that they've done and how to calculate the amount of evaporation. And so I was curious if that's in your field of expertise, if you might know if you could have some success with that.
Certainly with some land that can be made available, I mean, any surface water body in the state of Florida is gonna have evaporation. That's going to happen. That particular study I'm not familiar with, but when we look at stormwater designs, we do look at, how much is gonna infiltrate, if any. What is going to, overflow to another location? What is going to evaporate? A lot of times in stormwater design, we'll dismiss the evaporation component of it because it's so small. We'll go, well, that's just bonus land, and so we'll design more for evaporation and flow to other locations more so than evaporation. And if you're talking about, when you talk about the aeration, is that for other issues besides flooding?
No, I was wondering about the machines, the ones that cause the aerating of it into a mist so that it can evaporate more quickly. And I'm not sure if that falls into your wheelhouse or not.
It certainly could. I'm not familiar with that being used here in Florida, but it's an idea.
One other question. In times of drought, and that's been something that we've had to deal with where we actually thought we were losing the lake. Is there a plan that could kind of, while the dry season is here, I mean, is there some implementing of a plan that can take that drought into your 500 or 100-year plan? So you can just, while it's not a hot item or wet item, that we can do something in preparation?
So one of the things that may be worth looking into when these water levels go completely in reverse and they're, really dry or nearly dry, is to really look at those lakes and ponds that you control, that you have control over as a city, and see if they're in need of any sediment removal. Has part of their storage volume filled in and that sediment needs to be removed? Because that could be impacting how much water they can store during the wet season if they have excess sediment.
I'm gonna basically go in reverse of what Mary was talking about. I'm not an engineer, but certainly right now it seems to me that with the waters being as high as they are, should we not have an engineer look at these areas to see if maybe a berm is too high on one side, what actually caused the problem in the first place, other than just a lot of rising water in the ground?
When everything's flooded, it's kind of hard to tell, where the problem lies. I think your situation probably is more the amount of rain we got than anything. I think the modeling that we do as part of the vulnerability assessment, because we take into account the land use and the terrain and the flow patterns, and we take all that into account. I think we'll see a lot of what you're seeing right now in that assessment show up, on paper.
Is there anybody else? Thank you very much. Let's remove to your question. You want to follow? Yeah, go ahead.
I gave a copy of PDF document from the Bush County Appraiser's Office that shows the properties at the intersection of West Craig and North High Street. In reviewing the properties, my first proposal was to possibly look at adding a retention pond south of the Kraft property. But then I started noticing that there's north of the lake that's behind 390 High Street. And there's some ground around it that can be added to it. That's something that would have to be evaluated and assessed by an engineer. But if the city purchased these lands, still the property owner's not going to be able to do anything with it because it's a low area and it's already in the floodplain. But the property is owned by William Hart Trust, and they're out of Fairfax, Virginia. So negotiations have to be done and stuff like that to be able to get the property, and then both properties we'd be able to take and dig the retention area a little bit deeper and bigger, so that the water that fills into the pond behind 390 and those other houses around it would have another spot to go to fill in and not be flooding into their houses. So I would like to have this added to the addendum to the master plan, say another possible location.
If I'm recalling correctly, this property that has the 391 listed on it, isn't that up higher than the other sections? Would that need to be dug out?
It's not 390. 391 has a house on, that's where Mr. Kraft lives.
Okay, I'm sorry, could you repeat where you're suggesting is these two and
This
three?
area that's surrounded by the greens,
Okay.
top square,
Right,
those two pieces of property.
okay,
These two.
okay, I'm sorry, I was
Those are low,
confused by the arrows.
yeah, those are two low swampy pond areas that could be expanded to absorb the water from the pond behind 390. Yeah, the arrows go to what the current evaluations as far as costs are from the property appraisers thing.
Okay,
And both of them together would be a little over $75,000.
okay, I thought that was water flow, I apologize, thank you for clearing that up.
Yeah, that's all the copies of the property appraisers information there that's off to the side for those two pieces of property. But I would like to have this added as to an addendum to the master plan to be able to be used for resolving the flooding issue in that area.
Who owns that big, large piece of property? Is that a body or is that a lake?
Which one?
This one right here.
That is based on that 357 Craig, West Craig owns that.
But it is
This
water.
house is in, yeah, that's water.
Okay.
That's deep water because it's darker blue. This is shallow water, this light blue, and what's below there. But because it's inside his property there, it's his pond. But this is city's right of way, which gives us access to be able to do that work.
Moving to the public forum.
Heather,
Oh, Heather, I'm sorry.
And Roger, I get a copy of this to Ryan, just for them to have it, and try to figure what we talked about that one. Okay.
Is that something you're wanting us to consider purchase of immediately or start the research on? Is that what
well,
you're
that would be
suggesting?
another thing for Woodward and Corn to look into on their assessment and financing.
Okay, and is that's for the facilities plan?
Yeah.
Okay, understood. Okay, the item I wanted to add was the action item requested at the October meeting by Ms. Nash for the December citywide yard sale, and it was requested that we waive the fees as we have for the other citywide yard sale that has been known and loved in our city for many years. And so, unfortunately, the hurricane came. I think there's a lot of residents that were unable to participate due to one thing or another. So I'd like to put together a motion that we waive the fees for the citywide yard sale. But I wanted to hear your input first before we do that and open it up for comment.
So,
Anybody's?
okay, so we're wanting to add another yard sale. That basically, is this piggybacking off of the original that's been, I guess, the city's been involved in for, I think, approximately 7 years, and we waived permit. I'm sorry. So we're looking to waive for a second round of yard sales. I read the memo that came out today. You'll have to forgive my voice, I'm sorry. I was a bit shocked when I read it, number one. But, number two, I know that there was mention that the villas want to be a part of it. Well, number one, in the villas, you can't have yard sales. Only when you move in and when you move out. Victims and asking them. But, it really is my concern, there's two concerns. We've already got an established yard sale that's advertised all over, basically, over the state of Florida. We're waiving permit fees, one go around, now we're going to do it again. And this is really including the county, which has a different set of ordinances. I just think that we're spending way too much time on this kind of stuff. There's too much business that needs to be taken care of. Right now, I don't even know, everybody was, in an uproar about the city roads and the conditions they were in with the first yard sale. And right now, our roads are really not in good shape. I mean, I was just down on Lemon and, right around the Lake Helen area. Nobody could get down there for a yard sale. I mean, I would be afraid to even walk through. I don't see having 2 yard sales.
Well, and I don't think there's anything taking away from the yard sale that has already been established here. I think it's just adding the second one this year since the first one, unfortunately, very unfortunately, fell after some hurricanes. So, and I understand the concerns, absolutely.
So are we then going to make this an everything of every year event? We're gonna have 2 yard sales, or is this an exception to?
I can't speak to that, I just have the information that was presented to us at the October meeting, so I'll have to defer to the event organizer. Ms. Ash, if you'd like to speak or answer that question.
My name is Fiona Ash, I'm here in Lake Helen. This isn't piggybacking off of anybody's event. This is not a city drama, this is not all. The majority of Lake Helen, to include city and county, asked that the previous yard sale be postponed. And the person who set that yard sale up insisted on having it when the city itself asked that nobody come into Lake Helen for any event. And the person who put the previous yard sale on insisted at all costs to have it. So this has nothing to do with what has happened the last 7 years. In fact, myself, I understand that you guys have received an email today that says otherwise, but myself and the entire gym has never had an issue with the yard sale for the past 7 years. All we asked was to please postpone it, and the curator of this needs to boost her chest for her ego. This has nothing to do with that. All of this is the city people want to have a yard sale. That's it. They weren't allowed that in October. There has been no drama for me. I have every bit of proof that the city, all of you can see. I haven't sent it to you because you all have way more time than our social media pages. So I stuck with the fact of all of us, not Fiona, all of us want to have a yard sale. That's it. And I have message after message, and to answer your question, ma'am, I actually have a message from Ann back in October, that states, good morning, are you going before the city commission in Robbins?
Mhm.
You know her, okay.
Yes, I do.
City commission on the 14th for the approval of the city county yard sale. Julie asked me if I had heard anything. Everybody in the villa, her and, would like to do yard sales, so that's why that was added into my email. I do find it suspicious that I sent the email and immediately there was a response from somebody who's not even on the commission, but that's a whole other thing. I'm sorry that you guys have been involved in this. I've attempted to only send one email asking a request. That was it. And this isn't Fiona, this is Lake Helen. So,
But you said that you live in the county.
I live in Lake Helen. Ma'am, I live at 840 Pineda Road in Lake Helen, Florida, 32744. Thank you.
Well, we don't want to get into the drama of this.
There's no
some, well, we don't need to start bringing up the past and all that kind of stuff, but.
Okay, well, I'm just telling you what I'm asking for. That's it. I answered your question.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Let me just, from my own experience with the yard sale, the idea of the yard sale, turn this thing on. The idea of the yard sales is that because they are permitted by fee, you come in and you file, and you can pay for the yard sale, and it can be willy-nilly. You get ready to move out, put something out, and you want to have a yard sale, fine. I think the original idea was that if we could do a unified yard sale where a lot of people who had things that they wanted to do at the same time, it would bring people into the community, as well as being able to give everybody, what is the fee for the yard sale? $5, so it's not like the city's losing a lot of money, but it would be bringing people into the community. I think this last sale was kind of in the midst of a hurricane and the recovery, so that might have gotten some angst, but the intention was and is good. I don't think it's a big issue that if we have one or more yard sales with the ability to bring people in a safe environment that would give us the traffic that we may be able to utilize. So I think as an idea, the idea was hatched with great intentions to, I would say, over the period of time that I've observed them over the years, that it did put a lot of traffic in the city, and it was a very positive response. So just weather-wise, we had to deal with not only the yard sale had to deal with something that was completely unheard of, but the city had to recover from that as well. So I would think that there's enough room for us to bring this to whatever conclusion that it should not be something that we should become too high of. $5 fee it's really that's just my opinion.
That's my opinion. It's like one yard sale, 2 yard sales, 3 yard sales. Nobody has a patent on yard sale. It's no big deal. And I do know that a lot of people weren't able to participate. And the one moving forward is a month out, and all of the debris has been picked up and will have been picked up by then. So that would help. Granted, we might have a couple of streets that we won't be able to go down because they're blocked off, but I'm sure you will. Yes, I know everybody that does that. Anyway, that's just my take on it. It's like, it's a flipping yard sale and it's a community event, so I don't see the problem with it.
Do we want public comment first, or do you want a motion in a second? Oh, I'm sorry, Roger.
When I first heard about the community-wide yard sale, the original community-wide yard sale, it came during a time when all across the nation, communities were coming together for a large yard sale. And I forget how long the biggest one I think is a couple states long. You gotta drive along a highway and there's thousands and thousands of people out there with their yard sales, stuff like that. And the idea was brought to the city to create something similar in Lake Helen that would bring people in and help people get rid of some far as this one, I would like to see it spread out a little bit more time. Maybe have one in the fall, which is the current one, and one in the spring around Easter, to where they're spread out and they're not on top of each other. And I like the ideas of it, but they're just too close together.
I think the reason for that was because the last one, kind of, most people that had already had their stuff ready to go weren't able to participate, so they still want to get rid of what they had ready to go into that yard sale.
I've been trying to get rid of my stuff for 5 years.
Nobody wants that stuff.
And just because my grandma and grandfather has a bunch of antiques.
I'd also like to speak about the market in the park, which is one of the ways that people could bring their stuff and kind of lay it out, you know, without having to have people come and find their houses. As I look, go to the market in the park, it's getting fewer people that are coming out or bringing their stuff out. So, you know, whatever that does, it was an outlet for people that, instead of having a yard sale, let me just go down to the market park. So there is a change that's happening in that. So
It's a lot of work to
It-
load everything up and then have
it
to
is.
unload everything you don't sell.
it is. And so, you know, I think that the benefits of the yard sale is the people who get a great deal, who come there and find it, move, you know, so they wouldn't have to go someplace else. And you can get rid of your stuff. I know I'm about ready to have one myself
Well,
on
there
my
you go.
lawn. Anything else? Good of the order.
I'd like to make a comment on the market in the park. It fluctuates on the seasons. And right now, you're going to see more people coming to the park because our northern residents are coming down. And they do a lot of shopping in the market in the park. And when you have an increased crowd to early springtime is the busiest time for the market in the park. And then it kind of fluctuates up and down depending on the holiday through the late spring to early fall. But it's a great avenue that people use. I'm sure we might be able to negotiate with Karen, between the city and the Karen, on being able to maybe, if somebody wants to do an occasional yard sale at the market park, that they reduce the price for the resident in the Lake Helen or greater Lake Helen area that wants to have a yard sale at the market park instead of at their house. That maybe we can do that, reduce cost for somebody like that. That's something that Karen and the city have to talk to about, work on.
To address Ms. Donato's concerns, I would like to suggest that our organizer, Ms. Ash, get with our city administrator for a list of roadways that are closed, and maybe that could be included in some of your advertisement or something like that, in order to keep people safe.
We've already mentioned that a couple of times.
Perfect, thank you.
There's no make a motion.
Are you ready for one?
You guys want to be heard?
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we waive the fees for the citywide yard sale happening December 6th through the 8th, 2024, with consideration of closed roadways.
You got that? Is there a second?
I'll second it.
A motion has been moved in second. For voting, for comments? Public comments? Yes, please.
So I'm Nancy Weary, I am the curator and of the existing Lake Helen Citywide Yard Sale. for the sale. This year, we had probably 400. We had, and it wasn't, we didn't have just less coming in or less sellers just because of the hurricane. Everybody in this room is very much aware of the vitriol that happened online by Ms. Ash. And to ignore it is absolutely wrong. It is absolutely wrong for all of you to sit up there and to ignore the conduct this woman has had against me and against this sale. A sale that has served our community well for 7 years and there's literally hundreds of people within our city who have participated. I really can't even believe we're having this conversation. If she had come to me in a different way and said, hey, can we try to, do something? She didn't do that. She began attacking me personally in this sale long before Milton ever formed online, and it is all documented. Mr. Gleason only gave her a little bit of wrong information in her original email to him, and I know that Ms. Bishop supported her stance, provoking her to incite all this stuff going on online.
You don't see me online, ever.
You say that, but you say that.
She's got 24 seconds.
Okay.
Let her finish.
So I'm gonna ask you tonight not to approve this and to really look at where we are as a city if we allow this kind of behavior and conduct. I am a city resident and I have been a hell of a volunteer and advocate for my neighbors and for this city. And if this is what you all allow,
Thank you.
God help us.
Thank you.
Okay, now I have something to say.
Well, before you do,
Okay.
as far as us sitting up here know what's on the Facebook page, I do not read the
We
Facebook.
are not Facebook police.
Well, let me finish. So I'm not in that group that you were classifying as before you use Facebook page. I just want to make sure. Thank you. So which one? Did you have something?
Yes, I do. I would like to say, I don't care what goes on Facebook. I have been off Facebook ever since I became a commissioner, because I don't need that crap in my life. And whatever, we don't monitor Facebook. I don't care. I don't care what anybody says at PM. It's not none of my business. That is social media, and the best thing y'all can do is to turn off your damn computers and walk away from it.
Thank you. Okay.
We got a motion and a second.
Is there a motion and a second?
Yes.
There is. Zone 1?
Yes.
Zone 2?
You come back to me.
I don't know.
If you need a second, I would like to just say, I appreciate the effort that's been put forth, fantastic event, and I don't wish for any of you, I think you deserve kudos for that. That event has been fantastic for us. My intention tonight is simply for the residents that were unable to participate due to damage or whatever. So, thank you for your thoughts with that.
Yes.
Vice Mayor?
Before I ask Fiona a question,
Absolutely.
after this sale to move to the springtime, so that there's a 6-month difference between them.
I think the entire city, including Nancy, we have all talked about this, and people would like to have 2 a year. Mine is not to be October and then December, it's just this time.
Yeah.
And I have reached out to the other curator, but that's not here nor there. So,
Can I speak on that? Because I wrote you all.
Yes. Zone 3? Zone 4?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Motion passes. Thank you. Now we are down to the public forum. I only have 2 cards. The public forum is where anything you would like to speak about, you have 3 minutes, put in a yellow card. And right now I have the outlook is on front, on top. Good. Okay. Alan, is you?
Mayor, just
Yes.
real quick, I just want to verify, because I wrote down that Heather had a couple of items, and I know the Woodard and
Oh,
Curran
that's right.
when they spoke.
say, and the one thing is that we owe, this town owes certain contractors and citizens a big thank you for going out at 7 o'clock in the morning of the storm and getting these streets open for the fire trucks and the ambulances and everything else. I think they deserve a big, big thank you for that. And the second thing is, it was brought up to me. I haven't cleaned any streets up from the storm for almost 30 years, 30-some years. And I got certain remarks about, the only reason that we did with FEMA and stuff was that we wanted to get into a bigger, it's more professional and come in. Well, let me explain something to you. For all these years, we have worked through FEMA. FEMA's worked with us everything. Even when we burn everything else, FEMA has always been there for us. So I just want to let you know, those two things, that it wasn't the idea that smaller the contractors. Tell you one thing, we got in and this street would have been cleaned up in 2 weeks. We'd have been done with this thing. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, you already spoke, so you're passing it. Kayla, Troy.
Kayla Troy, 664 Mackenzie Road. This same property is going to be coming up on the agenda, but I know the thing I want to talk about is slightly different than what you're reviewing tonight. So I'm not here to stop development or stop a build or anything like that. My point would be that the auto mall property.
Can we do that when that comes up?
Yeah, but it's about the gateway overlay. It's not about the second reading of the. It's not, you know. So I wasn't sure. Do you want me to wait?
Yeah, no.
Okay, I wasn't sure. Okay, so, you know, I'm on the historic preservation board, so we review everything on the gateway and the historic, and our whole point in that is to preserve the charm of Lake Helen, which is part of our comp plan. My suggestion, I obviously don't have a lot of information about this, I think that that whole piece, it faces Orange Canyon, and that technically is still our gateway. I think that this whole piece should be considered and adopted into our gateway overlay. If you look on our map now, this part closest to I-4 is in the overlay. All the rest of the Lake Helen portion that is all owned by the same owner. So I don't know what this would be. I don't have all the information, but I would suggest, I think it's in the city's best interest to have our whole portion of the auto mall be under the gateway overlay. That truly is the first thing people see when they get off I-4, when they come into land, they will see this development. If it does not have our design standards and our development that is a reservation of who we are, we're going to have something very lost. And I don't think it'll cut. So just keep that in mind. Those are my thoughts. That's it.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, didn't want to confuse the two, but we're tied in, okay?
Tom? Here.
Good evening, Thomas Martucci, 261 East Michigan. Thank you for giving consideration. I don't know if it's been approved yet. The engineering firm to come in and do a review of this master stormwater plan. As you know from my last visit, I expressed a lot of concerns. I'm not an engineer, but I think you'll agree that a lot of that money that is spent on build, other with the exception of maybe High Street, is only going to send water faster into Lake Helen and Lake Harlan, which will only again push back uphill because it does not have an outfall or a pop-off to move down to Lake Macy. You'll figure that out. That's your job to tell me where I'm wrong or right. But really, I want to pose this question. You said 8 months, and I respect your profession, but you said 8 months to come up with a study, these two studies that have nothing to do with an emergency pumping permit. So therefore, my question to the board here is, as somebody who's driving through water every single day, 6 inches of water out one inlet and 12 inches out the other inlet, I'm thankful that I have 2 high vehicles, but I go to put my car in reverse, back out, and my brakes are stuck to my calipers. That's happening every single day in both my vehicles. My My seals, my hubs, and my vehicles will eventually let go. I'm afraid to check my diff fluid. But can the city consider bringing in gravel, we've seen this in Orange City, bringing in gravel on some of these flooded roadways to help residents get in and out of the water? I mean, this is, whether you're flooded or not, you have your tax dollars are buying you at least a dry route to your home. I don't even have that. I think that's when we're talking about our reserves here and using them for emergency purposes, we're gonna use state money to pay for this study, which I'm glad we're gonna do, or hope we do. Can we tap into some reserves to bring gravel in and raise some of these streets? At least where I'm at on Michigan, it's a very short run. So I just want to present that question for consideration.
Okay. Mary, May Holton is Sarko? Oh, there you go, sorry. If I mispronounced.
That's all right, it's Shoulder Olshausen, otherwise known as Max. I come from Sorka to clean up the lakefront.
Speak a little about it.
Clean up the lakefront, and if ABC was cold, stop them from cleaning up the lake. We've obviously been busy working with FABC closely. As soon as we found out the problem that we had done, which we didn't know about. Now the FABC came back and said that literally the lakefront doesn't belong to us, it belongs to the city. And I want to get permission from the city to work on their property so that I can restore the lakefront to the way the FWC says it should be.
And I can answer that. Actually had a conversation, and I spoke with CJ from Florida Wildlife and Fishing Game. And what the gentleman was talking about is, they're allowed to clear up to a 50-foot corridor for their access to the lake. And in a clearing process, some clearing was done further than that. So they want to actually replant, revegetate that area. But it's the city's strip. So while they'll do the work and they'll do the contractor, we have to do the application. So I was told that the commission authorizes CJ, the Florida Fishing Game, they can issue the permit and they can work with the vendor that he's contracted with to replant the longer green strip on what I just handed out. The box that goes into the water that ends there, that's the 50-foot. That is what they clear, in reference for their access or whatever to the lake. So it's the longer strip going down would be replanted and revegetated. But he needs it to be done under the city permit because he can't do the permit. So I just need, unless there's some issue with the commission, that you would grant authorization for us to go ahead and apply to the state for him to be able to replant an area that had been unvegetated by accident.
So, let me get this straight. This might have been deletions or modifications that we could have put on the agenda to discuss and vote on.
This came up in the last
I know,
couple of
but-
days, and so no, it was past the agenda timing of when this came.
Yeah, I'm just, you're in the right place, you're in the right place, I just want to get procedures down. So, you've already spoken to the administrator, he has this?
Yeah, we've been back and forth for about maybe 2 months now. Obviously, maybe 3 months.
So
If that was with CJ and what happened, I just didn't get involved.
Yeah,
They're
well,
just
to figure out what we've done wrong, and obviously FWC came out, they came to our property twice.
Okay.
We had a meeting with the city and with the SORTCO to try and find like, okay, what did we do wrong? We didn't know we did anything wrong until we didn't stop. All right. So then CJ, FWC said, well, we need to come and ask you guys for permission to obviously work on your property so that we can replant the vegetation.
Can you work with this so we can get a way that we can?
Yeah, we can fix it. And what it is restoring it back to what the shape was actually improved with the plants and things that he's doing in there. It's just the city has to be the applicant for the permit. he can't be the applicant, so I need to be able to tell CJ that this commission authorized the city to do an application with Florida Wildlife and Fish Commission for him to be replanting the area that got cleared up previously.
Roger has a point that, go ahead, Roger.
I'd have to look at my maps at the house, because the only properties I know that the city has is by Royal Park, and then on the north, just outside of Jim Collins property. There's a lot of property on your side of the lake that's actually what they, I think it's called Hesperian right land rights. Land underneath the water is owned by people that live on Lake Helen. And it includes part of the shoreline going up towards the property on your side of the lake. And that's, I think it would have to be looked in further. Property may belong to the people that live on Lake Helen.
This is coming from Florida Fish and Wildlife. They're the ones telling me that this is their research and that the city would have to do permit for this strip that he's talking about.
I think we can check it further.
Ricky,
Hold
would
on.
like to say something?
Yes. Did you have something, Rick?
Yeah, I met with CJ and the homeowners out there, and CJ was also taken back by that we own the small strip. There's a few more places we do own, and the only reason he has to come here now is because we did own that little strip. Had we not owned that little strip, he would not be here, and we wouldn't be involved at all. But as us owning that little piece here, we have to have a permit. They'll restore it back, Storco will restore it back, put it back where it's gotta be, and that's all they're trying to do, get it back so they're in compliance. And nobody knew, CJ didn't even know that we own the strip right there. We always thought we owned Royal Park, like I said, the other part, but there's also a couple other spots that we own too. Don't look into that also. But they're just trying to get it back, Storco's gonna replant that, put it back in compliance with FWC, but he can't pull the permit with our little strip of property.
We're going to need to check the property appraiser to find out the lines, because that's very land right.
Yeah, I know, like Joe Henderson, most of them own all the way across.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with that, but some of them do, but apparently they need somebody, because that was former Commissioner Michael Woods who bought that property. So, and he may have inadvertently gave us that without us even knowing. I don't know when it was done, but I wouldn't put it past them to give us that strip so we can maintain it.
So that's a possibility.
Yeah, so we gotta research this to get some.
CJ's done extensive research, but they're trying to now, is Storco's trying to make good on what happened because he didn't know that we own the property. And they, FWC wants to restore that training and everything to do is place.
What do you need from us to do?
To initiate an application with CJ on behalf of Lake Helen to restore this strip under the guise of the president.
Would you need a motion, or can we
Yeah.
do a consensus?
Consent, just something that the five of you say, work with CJ, get him straight.
Have a consensus?
I have a question.
I'd rather do it.
Okay, on his email from Mr. Green, with FWC, must remain vegetated and maintain free of nuisance and invasive plants, but it does not specifically cite native plants. Is your intention to plant native only?
By FWC standards, the planting has to be native plants.
That's what I thought was so ironic.
Yeah, because when survey came out, all the plants were invasive, everything. There was not one native plant there, and that's why we can take it out. There's nothing native, you know what I mean? And that's why they actually said, okay, they're going to pull out the roots and everything to try and get us a nice clean lakefront. And then obviously, as I said, the FWC got involved, and now.
Yeah, I thought it was like.
CJ, what they allowed to go back when we made the plan.
The FWC permit actually goes into it more in than what this other does.
Yeah.
It goes down to itemized.
See that now, when we're ready, when we had the last meeting, this was, gave all the circuit so guys also, that I'm sure it's
Well, if they got the permit, that's different.
No, they didn't get it, we had to get it for them to be able to.
Because generally, with this person, generally what I'm hearing, something unknowingly on our property that violated state law, or some law, doing the remediation and corrective, so technically, we're in violation, we gotta get the permit, he's gonna clean, he's gonna restore it. So I just think we ought to have an agreement on that. Oh, whatever. Right, I mean, you hired him, whatever, but it's our property, it's our permit. If the restoration, it sounds like it's a very simple process, you know, but anything with environmentalists isn't simple, it really isn't. I mean, so it's not gonna, probably a lot more to it. And I just think we ought to have something in writing with the property owner saying, that the property owner agrees to comply with the terms and conditions of the permit. So we have a contractual, if something goes wrong, we can look back at it.
Is that a motion?
Yeah, I'll entertain that motion that we allow them to, the city to get the permit as long as there's a contractual agreement that he abides by the permit. Who's ever gonna do the work?
We will work with that.
Yeah.
Well, he's your contractor, right? You hired him to do work, and you thought it was your property. He probably thought it was your property because you hired him to do the work, presumably. But I think the contract ought to be with you because ultimately you're responsible for the contractors who do work on the property. And what they do outside the property, damage the property. You have a contract with him, and that's fine. You have a contractual relationship with him. I don't want to chase him. I don't know where he's at. I know where the property owner is. And so I think our contract ought to be the property owners, whoever the property owner is, you need to comply with it. You contract with whoever you want to do this. And so, and we can do a three-party contract. I don't mind putting him on there.
Second.
Second? Okay, we have a motion and a second, all in favor? Discussion, I would leave those both out. Anybody from the audience would like to have a comment to say what we're doing right now? Hearing none? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hear none? So moved. Thank you. And you'll work out the details. Okay, where are we now? Public forum, this is now, please know, there's one more letter, one more yellow card. Did you want to have a comment?
I do. Nancy Leary, 435 West Delaware. I would like to know why our city has not applied for any of the Create 6 money for the county when other municipalities within the county are literally receiving millions.
Mayor and Commission, we have applied, we applied for $200,000, so our facts are correct.
May I finish, please? Other cities are receiving millions of dollars. Daytona received 22 million. The smaller city of Edgewater, which is a little bit larger than ours, has received 14 million for their infrastructure and their flooding. $200,000 is nothing compared to what we could have. Our stormwater master plans, our capital plans are less than $5 million, and if we received half of what Edgewater is receiving, we could cover all of our issues right now. And it is free money. All we have to do is fill out the paperwork. We don't have to meet and match. We don't have to do all these things. We have a very small window to apply for what is left over from Ian. And then there's going to be more money available for our city and for our residents. It is not just for residents, it is for infrastructure and stormwater. And it would save us a lot of time, 8 months of trying to get money from a federal government of something that may not happen. This money is ours, and we should be able to apply for it immediately and receive it from the county.
We apply for it immediately, and if we are given it, that money will pay for that $200,000.
Okay. Yes.
You applied for 200,000.
Right? This is not money they voted on yet. This will go on future commission agenda.
That's correct. So the
So
transform.
this isn't current money that's been handed to anybody.
The Transform 386 program, they reopened back money left in that program, and so the intent is that once we figure out what those actual action items are, that we will then reapply, hopefully through that program, as one of the mechanisms amongst many others to help fund these projects.
Thank you. Anybody else?
From on the transform 386, so, I don't know, Mayor, can you recognize
Anyone else? Okay. Approval of the minutes, consent agenda. Consent agenda. Here. Does anyone have a specific that they'd like to address? Okay, and the minutes?
Well, not in the minutes.
Okay. We'll call the minutes separate, and the bills paid, and then the acceptance of the variance. Is there any motion on the minutes to accept the minutes as been read for the previous meeting?
Mayor,
Yes,
in the future, we're not gonna have a consent agenda because it never works like a consent
I
agenda.
understand.
So we're just gonna go ahead and put these items on individually because
Individually from
the
now on.
consent agenda typically has a motion to approve. If there's an item you don't wanna talk about, the motion is to remove that one item and then vote on those items you don't have an issue on. Every meeting I've been here, we have never done it in 9 months, so there's no reason for a consent agenda if we're not following what a consent agenda is for.
We all understand that in the consent agenda, as you explained, it's usually just a blanket. If there's something in the minor pieces and deletions, at that point in time, we deal with, we address it then. So where we are now, we are at the minutes.
Or could we have a motion first to the consent agenda?
Okay,
If someone wants to move something, then pull it and then vote on the remaining.
right. Let us
I just
know.
have a question on the bills, please.
Okay.
Okay, I make a motion that we approve 8A and C.
A and C. Second. Motion moved in second. All in favor? Discussion? I keep people out. Discussion.
Well, not them, but for us.
Yes.
That's a question.
Right. We got a motion for 8A and 8C, which is 8A is minutes, 8C is budget, variance report, and the bills will be separate. Discussion.
Y'all voted on the A's, right?
Not yet.
Not yet, we're getting ready to vote on A's.
Who made the motion?
I second.
And that's where we get ready to go. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Have it. Now to D. This is the bills. Any issue on the bills that we'd like to?
It looks like some of these bills are double. Again, it's like the same, it's a duplicate bill on some of these. And I thought we fixed that problem.
Well, tell me, because you will see a same check number and a bill, and I'll give you, the credit card comes in, and the credit card, using that as an example, was used to purchase items for different departments.
Right.
You're gonna see it on here multiple times, because it's based on the line item that it's charged to for reimbursement. So, no, I was using that as an example. So what, because
There's one here for Lawson Products, and it actually is 3 of them for $29.91. Then you got,
What page?
sorry, page 1. And then you've got, assortment of nuts, screws, and washers, 102.49.
Yes, but if you look over on there, you will see, Charlene, under the account number, one is a number 410154152000. The second one is account number 720157252200. So though, that was, one was allocated to one item and one is allocated to another. So there, that's, so you may see the same item, but it's telling you what line item is actually been charged.
Okay, so can we look at, GSC, Gordon Supply Company? One. The post date was 10/31, it was for dust mops and refills, each in the amount of $77.50, and they go to the same payable number.
I've got a 1301 and I've got a 7201.
They're two separate numbers.
I've got 2449, 2449.
CSC Gordon Supply.
You want you to look over here.
That, yeah, it's the account number.
Oh, okay, so,
That's
so
where,
the payable number is the check number.
yes, yes,
Okay.
I'm sorry. I get you now. I was really,
Okay.
yeah, no, the account number is why you will see. That's where it's being allocated.
We go through this every time.
Yeah.
Every meeting.
I know, and it's awkward, we're debating stuff that has already been spent, so we're not getting the check back, and this is implementing the budget.
That's why I never vote yes.
He's right, what happens is we get supplies. Some of it gets split between all the departments, not one will do it. If it's utility only, like flag and tape, it'll come out there and go there, but if we get nuts and bolts that will apply to everybody, I have Aaron split it between each department, so everybody pays their fair share. Same way with when we do the power bill and all that kind of stuff, we split it rec and utility. So you'll see it multiple times, but it's the same amount because we split it. And you may see one extra because it's from another department directly to us. That's probably what you're seeing right now.
Maybe you get educated on this every meeting.
Jim was right, that's exactly what happens. You'll get a split all the way down.
If we really want to get, not complicated, but you actually then, you take that number on the account number and go to your budget variance report and see exactly what line item that was under.
Can I vote yes?
Can we make a motion? So we separate that, this one. Motion on the bills?
Make a motion that we accept the bills paid report.
I'll
Second.
second it.
Motion second. All in favor?
Comments?
Comment?
Oh,
Public?
Catch me every time.
Comment? Public? Commission? All in favor? Aye. So moved.
No.
No, you gotta say any opposed.
Opposed? Oh. Okay, I just, why have we, one no.
Then turn around and
All in favor? All,
Oh, no, any opposed, we already.
any opposing? Yeah, I'm gonna go backwards. Any opposing?
No.
No. No opposed.
Yes, I know.
No yes or opposed. Okay, 4-1. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, moving right along. We did the consent agenda, the public hearings. That subdivision is the first one?
Yeah, it should be under tab 9.
Tab 9, public hearing, yes.
Mayor, on this one, I would advise you, this is a quasi-judicial hearing, so any public, any quasi, or any ex parte communication should be disclosed.
As this is moving into a quasi-judicial, or does anyone here have a ex parte communication with anything about going on? I'll speak on it. None? Where's he leave?
He's tired of us.
Okay.
A massive.
Okay. I'll grab it. Great. The first one is the Quebec
there's no street going through the subdivision. All of the lots are accessed from the outside, so they're accessed from your existing roadway network. So PLDRC heard this request on October 28th. At their meeting, they voted 5-1 to approve the preliminary subdivision with one condition, and that is requiring that an updated environmental assessment be submitted and approved prior to the approval of the development order for the subdivision plans. So not this step, but the next step is the actual construction drawings for the improvements that you see kind of in a hatch mark on the lower portion of the PSP. That will have to actually be approved. Before we can approve that, that's administrative approval, we need an updated environmental assessment and all of the permits that are required for the construction. So that is what we're asking for, because the applicant at the time of the PSP did not want to update the environmental, because they're only good for 90 days, and they updated them again. So they asked if they could move that to the next step, which is development approval, which we're very comfortable with, because the development plans are going to be reviewed by myself and the engineer, and we have no comments on the development order. It's just this step has to happen before the development order can be approved. So we have no concerns or comments on this. They've addressed all the concerns and comments we have here. The applicant is with us tonight. If you have actual questions that are needed. We did take a lot of testimony at the PLDRC hearing. There were several residents, a lot of people spoke about. We did hear a lot of the flooding issues, because again, this was after the storm. A lot of people had concerns, especially the neighbor, with what's happening with the drainage retention area and the existing pond on site, and the drainage improvements that are proposed, that basically to drain this area back into the drainage retention pond that's shown on the tracks. And essentially, PLDRC all voted to recommend approval of this, and it was a 5-1 vote. And through that, we also discussed possibilities that there's a large oak on the property, shown on the property, and if the applicant would be interested in seeing if they could save that tree. The applicant can speak to this, but what they basically told me was that because of the particular drainage system that they have here, that oak is going to be in the path of the drainage pond. They're going to have to remove that tree because of it's going to end up being undermined anyway, because of the fact that the drainage flow is going to move. But the applicant can speak to that because they've done that study. So with that, I can answer anything. I want to go on and on a very simple subdivision.
Comments?
I'm looking at all the drainage areas, and I don't see it getting anywhere near the tree.
Chris, do you want to address that? I'm going to have the engineer come down and address that. It's his research.
Good evening, Christopher Blurton, with Everspring LLC, 220 Central Parkway, Hot Springs, Florida. The tree in question, there's actually two what the city considers heritage trees on site. Those are 36-inch oaks or larger. Those are proposed to remain. So those are the ones, the two that you see there with the circles around them that are not in a building footprint, those are proposed to remain, they will remain protected. There is a, sorry, go ahead.
I thought that was what she was talking about.
So there's actually another, I think about a 32 or 34-inch oak tree, a little bit below that threshold, but unfortunately it's in the berm of the retention pond. The retention pond has been designed to hold the entire runoff from the subdivision for a 100-year, 24-hour storm with some freeboard in that pond. So there's actually additional storage still in the pond after a 100-year storm. If we did modify the pond to save that tree, we did look at it, but unfortunately it would severely impact the flood retention capacity of that pond. So we thought, especially with considering the issues the city is currently facing with flooding, public safety and flooding was a little bit more important than saving one additional tree.
The other question I got is the sidewalk going down east of Hyatt.
Yes.
How wide are you proposing that sidewalk?
I believe we were recommended to put in I believe it was a 7-foot sidewalk. It's kind of a multi-use path. The minimum I think that the city requires is a 5-foot, but yes, it's a 7-foot wide sidewalk.
To be considered part of the trail, it's got to be a minimum of 10 feet. By the county standards for their trails, it's got to be a minimum of 10 feet.
I think I can probably go ahead and agree to a 10-foot sidewalk if the city, if the commission would prefer that.
I wouldn't be able to meet the trail standard.
I think we could accept that as a condition. we are preserving approximately 15% of the property as tree preservation and wetland preservation area. Another 10 or 12% of the property is going to be stormwater retention area. So that's essentially almost 30% of the property that's either going to be preserved as tree preservation area or as stormwater retention area.
And that's just for the subdivision, the individual lots will have, additional open space that we maintain when they're developed.
Yes, we have limited the lots to a 20% impervious surface area, which is less than the standard city requirement, or the standard city maximum, I should say.
My eyes aren't very good, sorry.
I feel your pain, so I'll be putting my reading glasses. Those are the senior size plans, those are a little bit.
That's why we always make sure we have.
Yeah, just a little bit of thing on the county's trail requirements is they want their trails to be 12 feet wide, but they allow them to go down to 10 feet in certain areas. And since it's going through a city, they allow them with their cities to be a little bit narrower, so they allow the 10 foot one. That's why I asked if we could do that.
Sure. Yeah, I'm a bicyclist myself. I know trying to get a bicycle and a pedestrian on the side or even a 7-foot sidewalk is a tight squeeze.
Is there a motion?
I make a motion that we accept the PLDRC's recommendation on the Lake Helen Urban Lender subdivision plan. I don't know, is there a number assigned?
With the addition of the 10-foot.
Yeah, with the addition of the 10-foot sidewalk.
And including the condition for the updated EA prior to development plan, development order approval.
Well, isn't that PLDRC's recommendation?
We just want to make sure it's very clear.
Well, that's why I
Yeah.
said we were approving their recommendation with the addition of the sidewalk.
I'd like, no, I'd like to add one more small condition.
Well, technically, in the motion with that, go after a second, and then we'll get up for the discussion.
Yeah. I'll withdraw my motion, make it.
Or whatever.
Okay. Ron?
Okay, so I have a thing for trees, and taking down a 32-foot tree is hurting my heart a little bit. Is there any way we could replant one or two as a condition?
We can't replant a 32-inch tree, but
Right. Something that will grow that is native and will help with stormwater.
I think we could plant a cypress tree or a red maple perhaps.
I was gonna suggest a red maple, they hold quite a bit of water, I think 150 gallons per tree, at maturity, so that was my suggestion. But something comparable to that would be fantastic, if you're agreeable to that.
I think we could plant 2 trees and maybe really change it to 1 trees. Yes.
That helps so much.
Is there a motion?
Same motion with the addition of the trees.
Second.
All in favor? Any discussion? Aye, in favor? Public comment. Remind Mike, public comment, please. That's not, yes, that's the order. All in favor? Aye. Motion passed. Any nays? Any nays? No. Okay, we're having fun tonight.
What we do, if we don't have a car
Yeah.
for that item, then so we decide if we don't want to hire it, so we can go ahead and move on.
Thanks so much. If we don't have a blue card, then we'll just move it beyond public comments. So, next one is 9B, which is the cyber security. Resolution?
I'll read this resolution 2024-14, Standards and Technology Cybersecurity Framework. resolution of the City Commission of the City of Lake Helen, Florida, adopting the National Institute of Standards and Technology Cybersecurity Framework and authorizes Chief Technology Officer to complete the local government cybersecurity standards attestation form via the Florida Digital Service online portal before January 1st, 2025, the deadline, providing for several billing, providing for an effective date.
Comments?
What do you ask? I assume our cybersecurity officer.
Cybersecurity?
One more hat.
Yes, I would just say. Chief Technology Officer.
I can follow up on that. I mean, two things. One, we are contracted with Big Sur IT, so a lot of the programming, the software, and whatever that's required, what they need to do is being done through them. The state requires this to be passed in reference, for us to be able to enter into, I think it's by January 1st of 25, that we pass this. And also for you all to know, on Monday, next Monday, November 18th, half of the staff is going to a cybersecurity leadership and strategy executive seminar put on by the Volusia League of Cities. And it's being done in the morning and being done in the afternoon. So half of us are going in the morning and half are going in the afternoon. And it's one more step for completing the things that are necessary as the IT security guy for the state of Lake Helen.
That's what I was going to ask about, because Tuesday they asked that question on, since the opening came up, is the city really going to attend our class?
Yeah. Oh yeah, we jumped on it, and we're committed.
Okay. Motion? Discussion?
Motion to approve resolution 2024
Second. Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Opposed. Resolution 2024-15.
Resolution 2024-15 by title only for first and only reading. A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Lake Helen, Florida, approving the final budget amendments for fiscal year 2023-2024 annual budget, providing for an effective date.
Mayor and Commission, what this is a budget amendment to balance the 23-24 budget. Previously under consent, we had the September report, ended up the year at 7% over budget. That amount was $380,126. And I can tell you where that is. The four key items that make up that difference were $33,500 for the CA search, $70,000 additional police department pension contribution that was required by the fund. Even though we're paying the ECHO grant in over for accounting purposes, the $156,000 because we do accrual accounting on a cash basis, so it's being written off in this year, and then $120,000 on Melissa Park. Those four items total $380,126. So that's the overage.
Motion.
Motion to accept resolution 2024-15.
Second.
Second.
Motion moved in second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? There are none. So moved. School.
Heather, text amendment?
second and final reading. An ordinance of the City of Lake Helen, Florida, Chapter 2, Comprehensive Plan by amending the goals, objectives, and policies text within the future land use element related to allowable uses in the employment center future land use, providing for severability, codification, and conflicts, providing an effective date.
Okay, so this is second reading, slightly delayed. The initial first reading was a little over a year ago, at this point. And essentially what is occurring here is we're amending just one of the future land use categories, which is the employment center category, to add the additional, to add units to, housing units to the actual category. What is being proposed at this time is an addition of 348 units to that category to allow for multifamily. It's being restricted to essentially the former auto mall site. So yes, in the EC category, but only on that southern portion of the property can you actually develop any kind of multifamily. The intention of this was a settlement between the developer and this board negotiating through the city administrator, not Jim Garrett, your previous city administrator, so that the developer was not going to use the local project zero control. The idea is the developer is asking you to do this so that they can go through your development process and develop a project that would be a cohesive mixed-use project on that site that would work with what's happening on the land side, and it would complement that land side development. This is the first step in that, for that to move forward, where there's going to be additional housing. At this point, there is no PSP that's been open, or there is no plan development that's been submitted in beyond the original plan development that's out there that's expired. So the existing zoning that is out there is null because it was never acted upon, and it is expired at this point because they never built on it. So as a result, they got to come back through that process and go through basically a negotiation with this board and with the planning and with the DRC to establish a new master plan for that PD. Okay, so all the uses and anything that they want are going to be opened all back up. This just sets the land use to allow them to ask for multifamily should they want to have multifamily included in that development as part of that PD. This has to occur, otherwise the only other option is to, because it's a commercial zoning, to use that Live Local Act, which essentially takes that out of this commission's hands, and they have to follow the Live Local law and your administrative review process. So that is what we're here to decide tonight, is this was the negotiation between the developer and essentially this board to provide an avenue where the public will be able to participate in the process of what actually gets done there as part of your regular plan development process.
I have one card on this one.
Probably appropriate to have the applicant speak first, and then.
The applicant, there he is.
For the record, Michael is with Coppell, 231 North of the Boulevard here in Deland. I don't really have much to add from what I've been able to explain on this process. I will be the face moving forward when we go forward with the PD process. I think you were working with Mr. Watts initially, when not all came through. Mr. Jones, I think, was dealing with the layperson of the project now, but I'll be working on this along with the Deland side as well. Looking forward to this before you, and just kind of have the complicated sometimes, we know that sometimes deadlines and processes and procedures get a lot of whack, so we really appreciate the help that, understanding what happened and then getting it back to right. So I appreciate that. Look forward to working with you guys on this. And happy to answer questions for you.
You mentioned as opposed to the Live Local, is there some trade-off that you have in terms of Live Local?
My understanding, so this is all of my understanding, because this all predates my tenure here, and actually Jim's tenure too. My understanding is that there was a negotiation to basically provide this avenue as opposed to them running through the Live Local process. And the Live Local process is going to develop a project that is not going to be of the same quality that you're going to be able to accomplish through the PD process, because they would have to meet all of the standard zoning requirements of the employment district rather than using a higher level of design through the PD process. So this was a negotiation, one, to provide an avenue so that the public can actually be part of this discussion, housing, and again, the affordable housing that they're actually targeting is that moderate level, so it's more of like workforce housing, and those units tend to actually be more of equivalent to market rate housing, right? So you're not getting affordable housing in the true affordable housing sense, it's more a targeted market under that local act, and the idea was they can't have as much flexibility under the PD to design a project that you would be proud of, and you can't get it in front of you without going this way. This was the avenue that was considered.
And Heather and Scott, correct me, I think there's another benefit on the way they're going, is if it had been under the Live Local, then it would have been subsidized, and it would also involve tax credits, which would have lowered the tax value of the property.
Only if Volusia County agrees to it, and almost every county has basically gone forward and decided that they're not going to provide the tax credit. So theoretically, yes, they would get they could apply for tax credits as long as they provide the requirements of the law to meet those things. So every year they have to recertify the number of units, they have to provide all of the required covenants, they have to prove that the incomes of the people in those units are still within the framework for that target market. As long as they do all of those things, they get a subsidy through the tax, through the property tax, which again is not ideal. But that's the idea of that law is to provide an avenue for affordable housing that hits a target market and provide an incentive to developers to actually provide it. That's what the tax benefit is for. That's the incentives, that's the carrot, trying to get people to build this affordable housing for that target market. And there was some type of negotiation. Again, your record is a little fuzzy on this because it kind of went back and forth between DeLand and Lake Helen, and everybody got involved. And so because of that, it's kind of muddying the waters here. But the agreement was that they would try this avenue because it would provide an avenue for an open public forum to design this project, essentially. Developer with this commission on behalf of the residents, and the residents that can participate through the process, because they would have planning development review board to discuss that bit, and then also at this level, at the city commission level, before they go through. Because again, it's going to follow the same, right, through the same process, right? It's a hearing before planning development review board, and then it's 2 hearings here before they can actually even submit me in any kind of site plan, that where they can turn dirt. They still have to go through the whole entitlement process, because your zoning no longer exists on that property. It does say PD on it, it's just a PD with no master plan, because the master plan is fine.
Now, are you speaking about the, when the Live Local came out, it was approved in July, and then in September, when we were over in the school, it came to us to modify something so that we could comply with Live Local, but now it's changed.
No,
Just clear.
basically what happened was, I'm kind of quickly summarize it. The city took a particular position that they didn't want housing there. They said they wanted all commercial. That was initially a decision, and the commission voted down an amendment, I think. And then the local changed, came into the picture. That changed everything. All your decision making went out the door. They now had a right to go forward and put residential here, whether you wanted it or not. You knew it was going to happen. But 40%, I think it's 40% has to be affordable housing. So, yes, the public process is important. I don't want to offend anybody, but we didn't want affordable housing. That's basically what it was. So we said, let's come up with an agreement that will allow you to build there. Now, we can't prohibit affordable housing from going in there, but Live Local required them to make a certain amount of those homes affordable housing. The city didn't want to do that. We could try to avoid that. We could demand, because we have a low amount of commercial, industrial, less than 20%, what the law says, in terms of our overall city, we could require a mixed-use development, but that law is not real clear how it applies either. So, and this is when working with Rob Dunn at the time, we just said, let's go forward with amending to make it clear in our comp plan. Rob was saying, you could interpret the comp plan to say we could have residential because it said ancillary, these commercial uses and ancillary uses, residential could be ancillary. And I kind of said, that's a stretch. Let's do it right. Let's go through the process, amend it. Let's specifically say can have, how many residential units you want to have in there. That was discussed some in a meeting and workshop over there at City Hall. And ultimately, we agreed on what we agreed to. And went through first reading, that was consistent with what we wanted. It didn't get transmitted. Don't know what happened. Whatever happened, it didn't get transmitted. So we just needed to transmit, let them review, them being the state of Florida, all these agencies review it, give us their comments back, so we could go through what's called the adoption hearing, which is what we're doing tonight. There's the transmittal hearing and adoption hearing. We're at the adoption hearing stage. Technically, this probably should happen in the spring, but because it wasn't initially transmitted, it was transmitted late, Heather got the state to accept it, and they reviewed it anyway.
With a lot of effort, yes.
Yeah, you got to accept it, and I don't know what the comments were that came back, I don't know the adjustments were they needed, but came back, it's now before you for second reading.
There
Local
were no adjustments for this, just so you know, there was no requirements for adjustments. All that the state let us know was that we had some other work to do because there has been changes to other statutes, just all of them give us notice, hey, you just let notice that these other items need to be addressed, which Jim and I are working on now.
So, but basically, the city had one position of what they wanted to see over there. The state of Florida changed the law that took that decision-making away from them. And so, in essence, we tried to make the best deal we could for the citizens, given what the state legislature did to the city.
Okay.
Now, that's bottom line what happened.
I was in, so I'm glad you gave me that.
You're catching up, yeah.
Yeah, I'm catching up with it. Yeah, I was in the audience, and it seemed like once they said live local, then it was a no-brainer. You gotta go along with it, but now we have an option.
And the developer worked with us to come up with an option.
Thank you.
That's, you know, we made the best deal we could, given the circumstances. There were some things that we were able to provide to them that they wouldn't get under local. There are some things they could give to us that we couldn't get under local. It's the best of everything.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, Heather, you said that there's still some items that you're working on, that you and Jim are working on.
So they're not related to this, they're related to other components of your comprehensive plan because, the state law has changed in some of the other areas. So what happened was when they review the minutes, when they go up to the state, we get comments back, and if we haven't already addressed some of the changes of the law, which we haven't done because we haven't gone through what's called our evaluation and appraisal report, which is required next year, not this year, they're just putting it on us on notice. So we are in the process of working on some of those items that they will be incorporated. You will see some of those pieces come forward to address the additional state laws. They do not affect this specifically, they affect your complex. The city's ability, if you want to change the future land use on any property in the city. Not if it's a private property development. Private property developers can come in and they can ask for whatever they want. You as a city cannot amend your comp plan until you meet the requirements of the state law. That's the first step in the process. So in order for us to keep you in a place where if you were to need to do some type of amendment, you have the ability to do that, I need to move forward. Otherwise, it would have to be a private developer that comes in and did your change, that really you as a city wants that change. So there's ways around it, but we want to get you right with the state law so that you're consistent and you stay consistent as the law changes.
You'll hear it, there's
Ears, yeah.
ear.
Yeah, you were gonna have a couple that come before the year, but eventually there may be other additional changes that happen while we're in that process of going through and evaluating your whole comp plan to make sure it meets state law. I know most of it meets state law because most of the changes that have come through, you've addressed. It's just, there are some few that, like, there's a few little things that tweak every year at the legislation level, and if we're not actively moving through the comp plan regularly to do that, because there's this expensive solicitor. My time is expensive, so this expensive solicitor. We try to wait till the state ahead of your year before you can do anything more. We just don't want to stop you as a city to have options. We want to provide those options as much as possible to the city if you need them. Not that you are planning on doing any of that, but I want you to be able to do it if you need to. There could be an emergency situation where you have to acquire property and you need to change the future land use. We need to have that ability for you to do that.
I appreciate that. There's a lot of commercial, we were looking at these higher dollars, that's what we wanted. So now it's changed to 348 apartments. Is there going to be, is this like phase one, or do you have a phase two?
So as
Like
far as,
the commercial in?
so not necessarily the phasing, but that's the total number, that's the maximum yield of apartments that we would have.
They can have no more than 348 units. It does not mean that you will get 348 units on that property. What we have done in the land use right now is we've limited to that, just that place, because there's more places that are employment center. The employment center is a big, long piece of property, theoretically, a lot of it. We just consolidated to the southern portion, said, okay, theoretically, the maximum intensity that you can have on the residential side is 348 units, and it has to be balanced with mixed use. And that's what the intention of this district is. That's the intention of what their plan is. They're gonna have a mixed use code. It's gonna include a residential component, whatever that looks like, because I don't have a plan, I can't tell you what it looks like. And it's gonna consist of some type of commercial. And most of the commercial uses were like restaurant uses and those types of uses that were included in what they've already developed on the land side, or in the process of getting entitled on the land side. So they kind of gave me a theoretical concept.
The details,
But we are-
the details will come in the rezoning stage. They'll come in with what's called plan development, and that will have the details, that will lay out, this is where how many residential units they have, where they will be, this is what the commercial will be. And so that will include a development agreement and a plan that kind of lays out where everything's gonna be, and that will be at the rezoning stage.
And it will also include a phasing schedule, which will address the issue that you're saying, is it gonna be all in one phase, is it gonna be phased over time? That's something that they're gonna have to tell us at the rezoning level. That's one of the requirements in your code, is that you provide me that phasing schedule that tells me. That's why the one that we're working on currently on Mead and Summit, that folks have seen, has phasing lines on it, because it's required as part of the PD, to show that to us. So that we can make sure everything works from an internal perspective, as well as that it works with the outside areas. So it's consistent and compatible with the outside, but also that like internally it's gonna work. Because there's nothing worse than driving through parking lots that you can't get out of because nobody thought about it.
Right, well, considering that the land, on the land side, they are getting commercial, and that's why I asked, on the Lake Helen side, are there plans to add commercial in?
I believe so.
So I can tell you from a theoretical perspective, because I got a concept plan that was attached to DeLand's PD. So DeLand has their PD, and then there's a conceptual idea of what theoretically will work, happen on the Lake Helen side. But that formal submittal to Lake Helen has not happened. They have been waiting for this to occur for a really long time. And we were delayed this summer because we had to negotiate with the state, because you didn't hit their deadline. And there is nothing in state law to really tell them what they're supposed to do when you don't hit a deadline. And so we had to negotiate with the Department of Economic Development, now it's Department of Commerce. We had to negotiate with the folks there, so that when they get this final, whatever you decide to do tonight, when they get this final piece, they understand what's happening.
Well, are the plans also for Lake Helen to maintain the water side of it, or is the land going to be?
The utilities are gonna be provided by the land, both water and wastewater.
Same as it was under the prior automobile. So just so you know, just so we say that we limited up, they can have up to 20 acres of residential. The balance of the property has to be commercial. So that's in this complex. So in terms
Is the water,
huh?
basically, those utilities?
We don't lose it, we never have.
Oh, I thought we did.
No.
The other side of the I-4 was Eland's water control district. We're on
They were always providing.
our side, we
Thank you.
Well,
That's great. So we'll make sure I'm-
No, absolutely.
Can I just ask this one question?
Yep, good.
with 348 units, and our comp plan build out was supposedly was 6,000. If we have 348 units with 3 people in it, roughly, we're talking about another 1,000 people that could be added if we use that build out. Is that something that is in our timetable? Because we were building houses to 6,000. That was one of the reasons that we have septic as opposed to sewer. Sewer was supposed to keep the numbers down. We did not include at that time a 348 unit with an additional $1,000.
This would be on the sewer.
This would be.
This would be on
It's
the
gonna be on
sewer
central
provided by
sewer
the land.
provided by the land, so
Well, I was
it's gonna
talking
be a
about the
little,
number of people. In other words, we didn't have 348 units when we thought this out, but now we'll get 348 units. That's the maximum they can go up to, and even if we use it as 3 per apartment, whatever, you're talking about 1,000 people coming into this unit. Do we have that capacity in our comp plan to get the modified?
what do you mean capacity, you're not
Number of
saying,
because
we wanted to.
for a water and sewer,
Not population, we're only about third,
So-
we're just over 3,000 now.
what will happen is when we go back to going through your evaluation appraisal report, we will reopen your comp plan. At that time, we will not me, but
Yeah.
we collectively, all of us, will decide what your growth potential that you want to see by 2050 will be, whatever that number is. And then we will apportion that to the land uses appropriately. What will not change is this maximum number will never go up unless they come back to you and say, hey, we want to put additional units in there, with the caveat that if they use the local, I have zero control over the comp plan because that is not the intention of that law. But we'll accommodate as much as we possibly can during your evaluation and appraisal report. So while you haven't identified it here, that's what this amendment is doing. It's adding that to the land use element. So it assumes that additional population is coming with those additional units.
What your answer is for me is that if we have to come back to the 6,000 at some point in the future, we can modify it or change it. We're not stuck with it. That's what I kind of cut my teeth on for the last 12 years.
But you're stuck with it in the sense that you're still gonna have the water and sewer issue.
Water and sewer.
So if you are going to increase your population, you're also gonna have to increase the amount of water that you're able to, basically pump and with what are we doing with septic systems, right? Because you can't just willy-nilly increase the population if you're not gonna have a central sewer system, and you have a limited ability to connect to the surrounding sewer systems, you just aren't in places where things work, plus you've got all these water-related issues, so the land itself is lower in a lot of places, so it's gonna make it harder for some of those connections to happen, so that's why the septic systems are gonna be your best option to continue doing that, and you're right, you're gonna have to keep your population low, but that doesn't necessarily hold you to that 6,000 number. It holds you to that today because the analysis that was done back in, I think, 17, that analysis was based on that population. If you grow your population, all of the other elements of your comprehensive plan get amended to accommodate that new population at the end year. So right now you're 2035, the end year would be probably 2050 that you would be planning out in your next update of your comp.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Mayor, if there's 1,000 people in those apartments, they have no impact on the city's consumptive use permit. And
Because they're not.
They're using their water.
it's not our water. And the land of water and sewer, so it will not impact what you're talking about in the sense of those numbers. Because those numbers, while they may be in your population, they're not drawing those two critical resources provided by the land.
And for consumption use, that may not be an issue, but in terms of police, if we have to hire more police to accommodate that's just me
We're
thinking.
a long way from a building being built and people being moved in before we get there.
So let's not have, what are we getting for this then? They're getting back the land.
You're gonna get significant taxes on a commercial, because apartments are called commercial.
Okay, so So it's going to be,
No exemptions, no homestead, no whatever, you will get market tax value on the lot.
If there's more than 7 apartments.
Yeah,
within 7.
we're gonna have to do something, I'm gonna say.
And in the building of it, we also get something out of the
Permits.
permits and things
Yeah, you
like
get all the
that.
permit fees will come back to you directly in your jurisdiction.
So we might have to also consider expanding our permit operation to be able to accommodate that kind of a bill. I mean, I have no problem with it, because it makes some money.
I mean, we can address that, I'm not
Yeah,
necessarily, we have to add
Yeah.
staff to take care of one development project.
You might not need to add staff, you might just look at getting specific
Software.
consultants that come in and help you with those project-related pieces, and then they go away when the project is finished. And they may be coming in phases, like you may be just needing phases, and you'll have to see how the phases kind of lay out, what you think that impact is be on the sector, on the city center.
At least if we get it out in the open, we can think about it.
We haven't talked about it for years.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go through and see if I got the history of that property right.
Okay.
After the Alamo fell apart, and Hurley came to us and wanted to put in apartments and townhouses, and all the commercial was going to go on the inland side. We were negotiating, trying to get more commercial on our side. And then, over the period of that time, they came out with the Live Local, and Hurley came in and started trying to throw that down our throats, and it's like, wait, there's a clause in there that says, unless, if you have less than 20% commercial, we can require commercial in there.
You can require mixed use.
Yeah, mixed use.
Yeah, it can be both.
And so, they came up with plans that added some mixed use into it. Now, since they didn't use that, that has collapsed, and now we're into this new one.
No.
Is that,
No. First of all, we weren't in negotiations with Live Local, and commission actually denied an amendment. It actually came before the commission, y'all voted it down on first reading to change to allow the townhouse apartments. So really, I don't recall much of any negotiations going on after that.
well, I mean, there was talk.
Maybe some.
Yeah.
But then, Live Local came in. And that's when now the developer had a right to pursue a particular type of development. It follows under state law. And because we had less than 20%, we could request, we have a mixed-use project, not exclusively a residential project. And then that led to us meeting, there were workshops with the commission a year ago. We had, that's when negotiations came, and we came up with first reading of this. What we have before you, we did first reading. It didn't fall apart. It was never transmitted by the city to
Well,
the state.
the zoning, what you call it, the zoning
The
part?
zoning, the zoning is
Zoning
expired.
Zoning
Yeah,
expired
it's
last
totally-
year. Yeah, that already expired.
Yeah, it doesn't exist in the world of that it's on a.
So, yeah, that had nothing to do with it. Basically, what happened, we all agreed, we did first reading, the city should have transmitted a year ago. Didn't happen. Can't tell you what happened, just didn't get transmitted. So then when we started negotiating about where are we on these things, and there was talk about it, we were like, I think I remember asking, like, did we get comments? Because usually you transmit, you do your transmittal hearing, you get comments back in a period of time.
Yeah, it was.
Because we were asking, do we need to do first reading?
So then the thing got mixed up and the transmittal didn't go through.
Right, so, but there was never an intent that the project fell apart or anything like that. So we got it, so the state would accept a late submittal for review. Now it's back to you for second reading, the same thing that occurred at first reading a little over a year ago. You should have been doing this last spring,
Yeah.
realistically.
You should have been doing this 2 months after that first hearing, within that first hearing, after you had that thing, 2 months later, you should have been having the adoption hearing theoretically.
Okay, yeah,
So that's just what-
I understand all that. part.
That's what,
Yeah, I was getting the zoning and the transmittal thing mixed up.
Yeah.
So my question is, are we still allowed to require the mixed use of the property?
under Live Local?
No, under
But
what
yeah,
they're presenting.
yes, that's what I said, remember, I mean, that 20% of the total site, up to a max of 20 acres, not 20%, sorry, 20 acres can be used for residential, the balance has to be used for commercial.
So there
As
will
long as
be,
we get some commercial.
you'll get
Other than
you'll get a
the
mixing
apartments.
of, you'll get a mixing of uses because 348 units on 20 acres is significantly lower density than what they theoretically would be asking for if they were going the other way. It's just, it's a lot for you because you're a very small community, that's a lot of units to absorb. So I get all of the questions, but the idea is what they're gonna propose to you is going to be a mixed-use project on the Lake Helen side. It's gonna have to be, they got too much land, they can't put enough apartments on that to justify the pro forma to make it work.
I'm also concerned with the green space because when they put in Victoria Park gardens and all the other buildings in there and everything, they cut down the flow of water from that area into Lake Helen Lake. And any more development might reduce it more, so I'm concerned with having the green space to be able to absorb the stormwater in the area and control the flow coming through our streams. Because even DOT and with Milton and everything, they were caught off guard with their system, and that section of interstate got flooded. And of course, if you go down Church Street, where the stream crosses at Jordan Milton, it was over Church Street instead of under, but it washed out the east side of that section of the stream because of the amount of water coming from it. So I'm looking at the green space to control the stormwater flow, so it's not a big impact like that again.
Yeah, and to speak to that specifically, you already, the city of Atlanta's already moved to that 100-year, 24-hour storm management. It's not their default, it's on the way. That was a conversation now. I know we are dealing with excess water right now, but we knew, we were aware historically that when the lake was going away, it was that part of that flow that was orange underneath I-4. And what we have to be careful of, and we already kind of had to have a bit of a pushback with the city of Atlanta, is that in adopting standards on the fly, which we don't really like to do, there was some concern that language was being added that was going to pound that water on the north side of our chamber. Because we want to make sure nothing's flowing off. We had to say, work with your Elton city attorney and the land and say, don't put that in there. We know it's going to go to excess water, but that's the historic flow. And you're saying, John, the Water Management District standards want you to address every impervious area that the project comes through. And historic flows are supposed to be preserved. That's why you get wetlands. And some of the language that was initially floated through, you could use that to dry out a wetland because part of the north. So we're trying to be very aware. We're very aware of the situation in the land area. Orange Camp has had its fair share of flooding. The stormwater on our top of our various design standpoint. And there is still within the property, both in the land center and also in the Lake Helen Center, there is wetlands that are right there that have been identified previously with the audible plans, and we're aware of that information.
And the FAR for the site is, they're limited to a maximum border ratio of 55%. So there's going to be a significant portion of the property that will be open space. Now, some of that may be retention, some of that may include wetlands. It'll depend on the design. But during that process, we can negotiate with the developer the open space. You're talking about that percentage is something that you can negotiate with them. Everything is on the table versus a conventional zoning district where you're limited to what's in the book, right? You can negotiate every facet of the zoning for that PD as part of that process. So if there are things, just like we talked about on LH Pravat, we talked about the tree, we talked about the trail, we made changes on the plan at this level, you will have the same additional ability to do that during the PD process. So it's not just because they give us a plan and I say, yeah, it technically meets all of the items in the land development code and the comp plan, it's not open to interpretation. That's what the whole PD process is about. It's about providing and negotiating in a higher so that they are happy and we're happy with what has the
things that was said earlier was that the plan was to make it look like the DeLand side, and that is of concern to me because we are not DeLand, and we have different design element, feel, and laid back nature, et cetera, which was one of the comments that was brought before us earlier about the gateway overlay. So at what point would it be appropriate to bring the suggestion of the gateway overlay extending to encompass this area? Is it now? Does it need to be now if we're wanting to do that before we approve this? I think it can come before us for the next.
So it can't go in order. This is the wrong document.
Right.
It has to go in the document where the gateway standards live, right? They live in your land development code. So you
But
have,
timing.
you have two options. One is the developer has heard this now, so, you know, they weren't aware of this. I actually told them, hey, I know this is gonna come up, you just need to be aware that this is an issue. They've now heard this, they're gonna take that back to their ownership, they're gonna say, hey, this is an issue that we're, the last that I've had, the adoption hearing for the text amendment, we need to be thinking about this when we get into the PD and submit that PD in, because that's gonna be an issue that you're gonna be looking for. You're gonna be looking for, what do the design guidelines look like, and do they match, and within the PD, what are those design guidelines, and do they match my gateway district? Your other option is to amend the gateway overlay district and include this property. But that's gonna take some time to do, and it's not going to be a quick fix. And if they get their PD in first, you're kind of behind the times. So there's an option either way, like it's an A or B option for you to go either way. That would be a local decision either way. If the guideline, if you amend the design, the district to include this property, then it has to meet the gateway overlay district standards. If you don't, then it's going to be during the negotiation that we're going to have to ask for those standards. And they can counter with another option, right?
Right. No, I understand that. I'm just wondering about the timing of when that needs to occur. It doesn't need to occur before tonight.
No, it
Okay.
needs to occur sometime between after tonight and when you actually approve whatever.
Okay, that was my understanding. I just wanted to clarify. Thank you. And then there was one other comment that was made. I'm not sure, but it was about we didn't want affordable housing. That wasn't the case from me personally. It was about having the control of what it looked like, which we just talked about, and the tax portion. As this came out and overturned home rule, there was great concern. We know a lot more now than we did a year ago in July, so I just wanted to clarify that point from my personal. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a quick card here for, Danielle, you have it for the Automall property, and the second one, you're making two for one, right?
No,
You have Automall and the school zone.
no, it's part of that.
Part of the
All
same?
that, part of that.
Okay. Everybody else spoken? Okay. Come, please.
Hi, good evening. Danielle Hagstrom, 291 South Euclid Avenue. I wanted to note that I read through the packet that they're, the submission packet, and it looks like they're wanting to have 9 units per acre allowed with the EC category. But our previous, that EC is 8 units per acre. So that, when I did the math, it's an additional 40 units that were, if you approve this, gonna allow them to build. Which, if they have 2 kids in each unit, that could be hundreds of extra people over there and extra units. So I know that they're gonna build and develop, I'm not fighting that, but I'm just thinking we don't really need to make an exception to increase the units per acre than what would have previously or been allowed there. I would like to just consider that, keep it at 8 instead of 9. Also, I wanted to ask if we could make it a condition of the PD that is in Gateway, since it's not information, the letter that, I guess the school zone has to look at how many people are gonna be potentially living there and what impact that has on our schools. That letter seems not accurate to me for the amount of potential homes that are gonna go in there. I feel like and with the development that's already happened into land and in the area since the study was done, I feel like that's not accurate and definitely gonna be impacting our schools more than what the letter shows. I feel like that's it.
Thank you.
I think one of the reasons that the 348 was proposed, and I could be mistaken, but I believe it was in order to make it profitable enough that this would be acceptable, and as opposed to the affordable housing option, which could allow more, I believe. Maybe somebody can clarify a little more.
I think that's a fair statement to say that that number came out of negotiation to, avoid the local provision, but also make this a feasible project as well. So that would be fair statement and accurate. If now's a good time to kind of just respond to some of those other comments. We talked about the housing density. The school information and the school capacity information, that's always a concern, gets raised when you're even in the comp plan level, right? Because you're designing, contemplating the worst case scenario. You get those letters, it's a letter or two, and you say, how does that reconcile with what the school, because you see the homes that are being constructed, you see what's happening in there. And she's got one of the planners at East Spur Beach, but they have the data at the school board. It's down to like a micro level, and their ability to contemplate, and sometimes that deals with school shifting, and elementary schools have a little bit more flexibility because there's more of them. You start getting a little bit of pressure up at the high school level, but their level on not just a year by year, but semester by semester, week by week, to get down and their data on the demographics in each class is really remarkable. And so they are well ahead of the trends for a project that if we are at PD today, getting approved today, we'll be getting built out 18, 20 months from now, and we're able to accommodate that. The other irony of that is more school choice with how you send your kids to school, and the zoning doesn't necessarily line up with the geographic location anymore. The departure of a beloved assistant principal or a teacher can sometimes have a bigger impact on the pull or draw of the students than necessarily a project. So the school board is really good about getting into that information and making sure that they allocate their students in the proper manner.
Can I read one statement?
Sure.
No capacity reservation has been made as of October 10th, 2023. I think we're hearing no capacity has been reserved as of today. So as a result, all of their numbers, they get to go through this process all over again when they submit the PD. They'll have additional information, and at that time, Volusia will take all of their attendance data from that date, whatever date that is, and they will use that attendance data. They will not use the data that they used for this approval back in 2023 because it's old, it's dated, it's other thing. They'll be looking at that. They will then determine through an encumbrance report whether this project may have to provide to the school department for them to reserve capacity. So it's not just like I take student stations and the school has to figure it out. No, projects have to pay for that capacity if the capacity is not existing. If the capacity does not exist in the school system at any level, it doesn't matter whether it's they plan an elementary school separately from middle school, separately from high school. They evaluate all of those separately, and if one of them fails, then they have to pay a prop share for that failing value. If they all fail, then they're paying a much bigger payment. And that's usually those payments are then taken and pooled together within the concurrency service area, and that's when they determine when a new school is warranted, no matter the level. So if it's a middle school, they'll plan for middle school sometimes because they provide under ordinances where they share, so the little service areas share between each other. That's how they balance the school, the population of the schools over the entire county. That's why you have 20 minutes or more to a school because they're they're basically going to school out of zone for where they live because we're balancing the capacity across the district, right? But when it becomes an issue for new development, they gotta pay for those additional student stations if those student stations aren't there. And they have to pay at the time that their development order permit is issued. So most school systems will not give pre-capacity at this stage because things are gonna change. They know, especially at a comp plan level, but they will give you an analysis that says this is the issues we're already having to put the developer on notice, this is an issue. So that they know, so that they can be planning ahead that either they modify their project to fit within the framework, or they're planning for those additional capacity payments that they're gonna have to make.
And I'd also just say kind of like a little quick short statement. There's nothing we can do about it. It's not our question. It's not our issue. The school board makes that determination. Whether we agree or disagree with it, we have no say over that determination whatsoever. Nothing we can do about it. It's exclusively with the school board.
Thank you.
I got one question, and I am not up to date on everything, like somebody says I'm. But Danielle brought up the question about 8 or 9 units per acre. So if 8 units per acre are allowed, or 9 units per acre, that's 9 apartments per acre, 1-story building?
Well, it won't, it's not gonna be a one-story building
I know.
because you don't have a one-to-one FAR. Your FAR is a little bit more than half, so that means they're going up because each unit would have to do that. Now, there's a limitation on how high they're gonna go up. They've got 20 acres to kind of spread out over. So the question is, Lake Helen's maximum density is 8 units per acre. They're asking for 9 units per acre because they've restricted that, and that's a result of them restricting that to that, limiting on that 20 acres, so you have some additional commercial area on that piece for this project.
But to get the increased number per acre, they go up.
Correct.
So that
They have to.
if there's 8 on the bottom floor and they put 8 on let's say the 2-story apartments, there's 8 of them on the bottom floor, and then the 3rd and 4th floors, 2 more apartments, it makes it 16 on an acre. They can go up, but they can go out.
Well, they can go out, but like they've got to provide parking and things. So from a horizontal perspective, you can't just fill up. They can't just fill up the whole thing with 1-story apartments and hit the density that they're asking for. They don't have land to do that. You don't. The lot size can be way too small, right? So as a result, because you are restricting down the amount of area that things can actually occupy. That's what floor to area ratio means, is the actual area that a building occupies. That is not that's not just the footprint, that's all floors. So if there's multiple floors, those floors are factored into it. So you get a maximum intensity of a little bit more than 50% of this property can be covered in any type of building, right? The only way to make the density work is they have to go up. Now, how high they go up is determined by this board ultimately, in conjunction with the public, who's going to be part of that process during that PD. So if they have concerns, they're going to have multiple opportunities to have the concern. Plus, the plans are going to be out there for everybody to look at. That's the big thing here, right? So the plans are going to be available to the public for them to provide comment that they can provide back to the developer, and that's going to be helpful for them because they really want to move a project through. They don't want to sit here and go over an extra story may not be worth it to them if they have another way to accommodate that thing if the story is an issue.
I do know the higher they go, the more the life safety code plays into a part of it too.
Correct, because then they have to put in all kinds of different things.
But the maximum they can do is 348.
Over the whole.
Yeah, so it doesn't, 8, 9, 3-story, 10-story, it's 348 apartments.
Correct.
Okay, so it's not changing the numbers.
The total density does not change, but the density is higher in this particular area than any other place in town because
second? Discussion? Yes.
Who's the second?
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Oh, and, thank you very much. Thank you. I would, just to give you a heads up, Ross, not you. We have one more, this is school speed zone, and then we'll take a break.
Thank you.
Okay, I know, I feel it. So, the last one is the, school zone. Give us the ordinance, read the ordinance.
Ordinance number 2024-10 by title only for the first reading. An ordinance of the city of Lake Helen, Florida, creating section 31.04.00 of the Code of Ordinances declaring purpose and intent, authorizing the placement and installation of a school zone speed detection system, providing for the implementation of general law by the city administrator, designation of local hearing officer, making findings regarding relevant traffic data and evidence warranting additional enforcement procedures, and designating school zone speed detection system locations which constitute a heightened safety risk, providing for legislative findings, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, providing for codification, providing for an effective date.
Discussion?
Or do motion, then discussion. Make a motion, we accept ordinance 2024-10.
Second.
Second. Discussion?
Will this allow us to create a school zone for Ivy Helen?
We can come back and amend it to designate it. We'll amend the code section and to add it as, that school zone or any other school zone you want to add as appropriate.
I think the only way we can control a lot of the stuff going around the schools if we create the school zone for that school.
Further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So moved. We have an adjournment.
Set at 1, last time I went, it was like 10:30. I get back, I was over the road. I did everything. The three of us. Yeah, so I just, that was a special. Yeah. So I'm just going to this one to be honest. The time is perfect to discuss it.
We don't need it. I got it. half an inch of rain for 16 hours, or maybe get 2 hours or 4 inches. You know what I'm saying? Well, I mean, that's what they say, 8 hours and 24, but flooding, I think that's. I would think it would, if you get 4 inches in, that flash, whereas if you get a half an inch of rain an hour for 16 hours, you may not have 4 hours, because you can percolate on the house.
Safe.
The odds aren't that great, but we had them. So, what we have to say, what we got, by which we go, maybe we don't need to use 25, we need to say, like, it's perfect, we're having, you have 15 inches per hour, you're, I mean, I think it is, you're now getting a bigger big licks. And it's almost like, it's insulting, almost comical, you say, we have 500 year events in 2 years. Well, then how the heck do you know 500 events? It's like, you're actually insulting
They said this would be a record, this Hurricane Sarah. Claremont, Mount Dora, yeah, Winter Garden, area. Yeah, I'm just saying, we're high. No, we're up high, and I gotta tell you, retention ponds between my house and Lake Helen, they're flooded. Central Florida. There's nobody in my neighborhood will flood. Everybody. Yeah, that's all how we are. I might have that.
Oh, really? You recorded how much rainfall we got.
Just in the 24-hour period was 15.37. A little bit before, and a little bit after. And I can't say.
Well, then,
We're not looking, hey, we're not looking forward to it.
it came in on Sunday and Monday, and Milton was,
And I can't say it's totally accurate because with Bill, I checked it twice. I should have waited 3 more hours before I checked it the first time. Because it was.
One thing I like about the scary man, he's a little lost.
What are you gonna do?
Trying to get the other one on.
The day supposedly on.
So, it's gonna get in the dark for a second. So,
I'm trying to take a picture of my back and you couldn't tell what the water was. Clear plastic water, all it's the same. Honestly, the tough thing is it'd be nice to be able to try to. It's hard to do this. You look at a naked piece of property. That's good. And I felt it piece of property.
well, it also depends on the land. Because like where Station 63 is.
Also freezing in here too.
I know.
I said, break time's over, let's get this over so we can go home.
not turn it up.
Water.
It's over an hour.
Go down. And it was so hard to couldn't even percolation. It was like sea. But then I could put it in a chip bar.
I know they have to post it. Let's get this over with.
You created your own food now.
It's just hard to convince, because they don't, I mean, I'm not an engineer. Why is it? There's, you know, like, come back to Poly Island, we have that Poly Island.
Have to yell at them.
It's like 18 to 20 feet.
Mayor's angry.
It was past my bedtime.
Hey, you need to turn the air. Freeze.
Because one of the tractors are driving across the road
Can we group this project? She thinks so? From my perspective.
I wanted your perspective.
You were asking me, Chief. When the quasi judicial, I'm sorry, I got a mouthful of Snickers.
Is Jim recording on or?
I don't know where that, what is it versus?
It's right there, it should be
Oh,
sold.
still on.
Is it?
Oh, okay.
This is a quasi judicial hearing. Is there one that wants to be taken out separately, so we can do them as a,
Yes.
as a package?
And I
And I never passed it because
What
it's
was
on my
the
ground.
concern the citizen?
Not because I was,
What was the concern the citizen had?
the concern is that this is a new addition. It's not connected to the house.
I
So
got
the new
that
addition
same, I got that same concern addressed to me also.
As
And
far
the
as
septic
they-
load. And the septic load.
So, any other ex parte communications on any of them?
Yeah, I've got one on 10D because I'm their representative.
Okay.
10D.
That's a unique one.
Yeah.
And I also had a citizen contact me on that.
I did as
D.
well.
D.
Okay, good.
And D, yes.
Okay, so we have all ex parte communication disclosed. Does anybody want to pull a particular item, discussion alone?
D and D.
D and D?
Yes.
Okay. So Mayor, what you can do is ask for a motion to approve item A and C.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve for the Washington Citizen hearing? Item AC.
Make a motion that we approve the conditional hearing for certificate of preference for items 10A and C.
Second.
I'm gonna leave mine off in the order because I want this one very roughly. Thank you.
Motion moved. And second.
Sorry, who was the
We're
second?
going to talk individually about
Talk
D
on
and
D.
D.
A and C, so the motion was made by Roger.
Seconded by me.
None? All in favor?
Aye. And also they disclosed ex parte communications regarding E and D, I think, as well. Then we're done.
On the second one is the motion of 65 Water Street, that was pulled out.
Roger, if I could ask you one question, you say you're a representative of the applicant on that one, correct? Do you financially gain from, are you allowed to vote on this issue, or do you have a voting conflict, which would mainly turn on whether or not you have a financial gain or avoidance of a loss or something like that by voting on it?
Personally, no, but for the, I'm the commander of the post, that's every post. So financial is based on my responsibility as their commander.
It might be the safest thing, Roger, is to abstain. Because
Well, that's why I want it separated, so I wouldn't vote on it.
Okay. So this, I'm glad you're here.
You want my form? I already got it filled out.
You're ahead of the game, you're ahead of the game, man.
Okay.
Sorry for delaying the process.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from, that's the reason why I did it.
Sounds good.
Okay, so we're gonna.
Yeah.
All right. D is the lake, is the 165 Water Street.
No, no, no.
You're gonna D and D.
Oh, you're going to be.
D first. Okay, 165 Water Street. Discussion?
I have, I want to use that. Nobody wants to hear it. Okay. So I have, are we ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I have a concern with that property because apparently, and maybe we did it just as a group when we approved this, I don't know if it was approved for a CAC or a COA on the last addition that was put on this property. But the so-called addition on that property is actually a whole new house that is on, the weird thing is it faces Water Street, the addition faces, I guess that's Castaneda Road,
Yeah.
and it's got an address of 165B. It's got a front door, it's got a driveway, it's a whole house.
Be Water Street, not Castaneda Road.
But it can't be because the front door faces Castaneda Road. So that doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't matter, the property It used to be a garage, he was going to turn it into an apartment, and he went dismantling it, and he had to stop.
And wound up building a whole.
And he didn't leave any of the wall left in, so he ended up redoing the whole thing and putting the apartment instead.
So now he wants to put a new addition on there. So my question is several. What's being done with the septic? Because if he puts it, I don't know if that house, the new house, is on the same septic as the old house. And then he wants to put another addition. The septic for that house is for like a 2-bedroom one. Now he's added a whole other house, and now he wants to add a laundry room and a master bedroom and another bathroom over there. And I don't know if that new one has its own power. It has new power going in to the new house. Okay, so he has separate power for the new so-called addition.
But that power is off of a pole and not buried underneath, I believe. So that's another, and it's detached, so it's not an addition to the existing home.
Exactly, but that's what he said it was an addition to the home.
Right.
And I don't even know if that property is even big enough to put another addition on to. I mean, that's a small piece of property. Now you've got 2 houses there, and he literally wants to practically build a whole other house on as an addition.
Oh, the property's 150 feet.
He owns all
That's
that.
a pretty good sized piece.
To the fence?
Yeah, he owns all that whole area.
I would say, just kind of one thing, this is quasi-judicial. Our focus is, we're on a COA. So that's a certificate of appropriateness, and our focus should be on the historic aspect, our design criteria and guidelines, and I'm sure that he will have to meet septic standards, but I question whether septic standards are something that should be talked about as part of the COA. He still has to make sure he complies with all, whatever the septic standards are, he will comply with that, but the submittal here was just for the exterior of the building.
I get it,
Yeah.
but I'm just saying there's already issues on that property. I just want, as far as I'm concerned.
And there may be, and they need to be addressed by, whether it's through the building department or through the county department of health, because it's a septic system, they will be addressed. I just want to try to keep us focused on the review criteria that you all need to be on. I'm not saying you're not pointing out very legitimate issues, but for this particular application, since we're quasi, we focus on the certificate of appropriateness criteria.
Okay.
When is it appropriate to address those concerns? I'm sorry, I missed that part.
What's that?
Yes, when is it appropriate to address any concerns we have on that property?
Well,
After quasi-judicial?
well, this is before you for the COA criteria. So that's really the exterior historical part. I don't know that the other concerns, other parts of the development will come back to you for approval. It may be handled administratively. There may be a septic application that because you expand the size of the home, maybe you add a bathroom, you got to now go back to Department of Health and the county to make sure that septic will now has the capacity to hold that. If it doesn't, you have to meet the county's guidelines on the septic tank. That may not come back to you for review or approval. That's the county's determination. There may be other building code issues that our building department will address and our building official will address. That will not come back to you for approval. He has to comply with the codes. If there are certain codes that he's able to ask for variance from, because he's asking for relief from, that will come back to you to grant relief, a variance, if it's appropriate to ask for a variance from that rule. But the construction aspect of the home, like the construction aspect of homes typically don't come before this body for review. The building official looks at it, make sure they comply with the Florida Building Code. They've got to go to the Department of Health and make sure they meet all the requirements for septic tanks, the utility lines have to go through the Florida Building Code. All that stuff has to be addressed. It just doesn't come here for review. And if you have a question or a concern, I would say email those to Jim to say, these are the concerns we have. But I don't know that can't recall that any of those types of approvals come back to this body for approval.
You mentioned septic tank. Does it mean that he's applying for one, or that there's one already been done?
Well, we don't know, because that doesn't come.
Oh.
My understanding is there's current people, living there, so this is not a new home. This is-
Oh, it's brand new. Oh, the one he wants to now have
Yeah,
again?
no, it's adding a map. That's why I think his daughter's living in the house.
Yeah, it's a septic system, but it's for a 2-bedroom, 1-bath home. It's
The
a
number of bedrooms and baths is what they health department require on what size septic tank they have.
So it's undersized.
So they may already have a large septic tank there, I don't know.
I would agree that staff needs to make sure that every aspect of any new home, that whether it's an addition, they gotta make sure they comply with codes. That includes septic code, all those codes should be reviewed by staff to make sure, any additions, new construction has to comply with all the applicable codes.
When I saw it being built, they did put a septic system in it.
Yeah, we're not talking about that one.
Oh.
We're talking, he wants to do a new addition. He wants to do a new addition.
Yeah, this is.
Oh, okay, all right, okay. Moving right? Any suggestions, any comments?
I make a motion we approve the certificate of appropriateness and follow the historic board's recommendation.
Second? Lynn? Take a vote. Zone 1?
No.
Zone 2? Yes. Zone 3? Zone 4?
No.
Roger said. I'm gonna say no.
Since this is a COA is a development order, since you voted no, you ought to probably have a motion to deny, and then specifically outline the reasons for the denial.
I want to make the motion to table this until we do some more research on the building codes and whatnot, because it might be a moot point in my opinion.
I can agree with that.
Motion to table, yes.
Motion to move table, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
No.
One opposed. So,
The things you were talking about, obviously, septic tank, septic tank
There's,
issue.
yeah, there's more than what we covered, so I will put together my
so we will have an opportunity to address this again, or the owner has to come back and resubmit or something.
Well, this application will have to come back addressing questions that.
We'll look into it and get answers, now whether it's the owner that answers, we got answers, I don't know.
But the question we need to submit.
Well, I know about the septic, Heather said she had a couple of others that she sent.
And I have some there.
Okay, so if you'll send them to me and I'll consolidate them and I'll get them then to Debbie in order to get back to the HOA.
All right.
And it may come directly back to you. The issues aren't historic structure related, you just have questions about it, I think just.
Yeah,
go back
we're
to
able
you.
to answer, then we'll do that.
That's what I was trying to distinguish between, you're looking at a very, you do obey this type of approval, you're looking at a very narrow issue. The historic, structure, appearance of the structure. And you have questions about other aspects, this will get you answers to those other aspects.
Thank you. So we're
Now we're going to D.
to the D.
On this one, I won't answer anything, but I will not vote on it because I'm their representative.
Yes, sir. The issues with this one is
anywhere in the application?
What-
Is it considered an application?
What the historic board did put in here is because they were only approving the wood fence and the hot top table, they did not put that in there because they tabled it because they needed more information.
Okay, so the canopy portion is
It's
gonna
not,
come
that's gonna come later.
later. Okay, understood, thank you.
The canopy as now proposed doesn't meet the gateway corridor, so they're gonna come back with something that meets or they would.
Has that canopy come down yet?
No,
Or do you plan on leaving it up until you come into compliance?
no.
Okay. There's also a question raised about the eating area supposedly over the septic and drain field, is that true?
Nobody except for Cookie knows what the tank is, and he's only based it on him probing the ground. And that area is on the old railroad bed, and it was solid from the building to the sidewalk, which means that we don't have that large of a septic tank.
So there's no,
We don't know where the septic tank is on the property. We gotta hire somebody to come in and find it for us.
and then I have
And
another
that
question.
might be an issue on the location, depending on the health department, we might have to put in a.
My other question is the fence. There's like, because that's gateway corridor and historic area. There's only 2 fences that are approved for that area. And I don't think that one meets the criteria.
That it's a real fence.
Historic board said it met their criteria.
Are we talking about the split rail fence or
Yeah.
2 rail fence? Okay. I'm showing that as,
The western side of the property,
that's not considered in this application?
no, because it's existing, it's been there for 40 years.
Oh, wow.
So if,
I'm not familiar with that.
so my only problem is if that fence is not approved, I mean, they approved it, but if it's not what is in the approval book or whatever that they use for that, for gateway and, historic, then that's gonna open up a can of worms for anybody else to put unapproved or fences in that area.
Well, the historic board felt that it met their requirements, and it's not a picket fence, and it's about 20 feet inside the property line, maybe 25 feet inside the property line, so it's not on the border area of the property either. So they said it doesn't really take away from, it actually adds to the visual appearance of the building and the property.
And when did you say the canopy was coming out? I'm sorry, I missed it.
We're working on getting some people together to do it because the weather, and the cooler weather and stuff like that, that the sun's not hitting the tables as hard as it did before, and it's a little bit cooler outside, so it's not necessary to have it up there further.
It's not cemented in or anything, is it?
No, it's got screw clamps holding it to the fence. That's why it was able to survive Milton, because it's
Yeah, because that should be able to be
anchored to
taken
the
down
fence.
and out, I would think, I don't know. So,
Now, taking canopy,
okay, that's another problem, that came down before the hurricane and then it went right back up. But once there had already been a complaint filed, why did that go back up? I don't understand that.
to provide sunshade for the people that were coming out there.
But there had been a complaint, okay, then that's probably not for you, maybe this is for, what is the lead time for somebody to come in compliance once a complaint is filed? Because all these complaints are complaint driven, and when somebody goes out on a limb and puts their their name on something,
So-
give them the middle.
I'll explain it, because I was even gonna be the one that's doing the case.
Thank you.
So when they brought it to commission in the beginning, it was told to go to the HPV board, it was kind of caught up into that situation of what's gonna be allowed, what's not allowed. At that time, I talked to City Hall with, Jim and Debbie, and we decided, hold up for HPV to make their decision. From what I just found out, that HPV denied canopy. I actually talked to Roger on Saturday about it. From what I understand, they were okay with the fence and the tables, and it was coming in front of you guys to find out that ultimate ruling. And so far, like I told him on Saturday, as it stands, we'll have to take the tent.
And
The
but
canopy.
when? Is
So-
there a time frame?
The one thing I'm waiting on is the rest of the decision on those other two items, whether or not they go on to the paperwork that I give them, and he has 14 days to remove them. That's what I give everybody else in the city.
Okay, because it's already been like 2 weeks.
Correct, but understand, because once we gotta figure out what's allowed and what's not allowed, because the issue with the fence was it's not on the property line, it's inside the property. That's your guys' decision, I can buy what you guys say. So once you guys make your decision, I'll follow up with the paperwork, then we get into it. And if they don't come into current within 14 days, this is when we start the actual violation.
They said they didn't approve the historic board did not approve the tent.
From what I understand,
It's approved based on tabling it. It's not approved because they tabled it.
Okay, so, that is correct. Okay.
Yeah, because there was some issues that came up with, carport canopies and event canopies and tree canopies, but there's nothing in our ordinance that talks about sunshades or sun sails. And so that's an issue that we have to add to our ordinances.
Is there,
Didn't they table that?
The biggest thing that they didn't like about it was the metal poles.
right,
Yeah, I can see that being confusing because it's constructed more like a
car,
cover than a sun.
But it's not
shade.
solid, it's
Right.
it's
I
a
can-
woven material that allows.
Now we're splitting hairs.
Yeah, I can understand why they wanted to research.
yeah, because anyone that puts up a carport, I know that one month ago, you put a carport that we actually had.
as far as the canopy, unfortunately, from going in the past, with other people, they need to remove the canopy until it's gone to the HPP, brings it to you guys, to be approved to be there. But currently, that's not there, and hasn't been permitted, then it needs to come down, because we've done that to other.
Well, that's the other point, it hadn't been permitted,
Right.
so you really shouldn't even be waiting on HPD, because, in my opinion. But you're the code board guy, aren't you?
Well, I mean, we gave that break to the person on Pleasant, to bring that back to the city and decide what they're going to do before we make them remove it. So,
Well, then that brings up a question, why would we allow one person to keep their whatever canopy or sunshade or whatever they've got up, and then tell someone else? I mean, are we not being consistent?
no, we are, because what I'm saying is being consistent with Pleasant. So when the issue came up with Pleasant Avenue, and that was when they put no carport next to the house, that was actually matching the house and everything, came in front of the commission. We were involved with code enforcement on it, but we had held back because of the decision we decided by commission whether or not they were going to allow that canopy to stay there, because they brought it to commission, which everybody has a right to. Waiting for that, and for that decision to be made. Once the decision was made, they were told to take it down. They took it down within the 14 days, so they didn't proceed past that. But, we gave other people that option when it comes to certain things that is, and here's the problem, some of our ordinances, like I spoke before, are they're not set in stone like for one person to read. So there's certain things we have to let you guys decide and make that choice. Because the only last one, the part is, I sent it to the magistrate, now it costs the city money to have a magistrate come in here and sit here and hear the hearing and decide what he wants to decide. Well, if the city's gonna allow it, there's no reason to waste the money at the beginning until you guys make your decision and follow up.
Too many of our ordinances are left up to interpretation.
Well, it looks to me, based on what he's got up there, that you could almost call it a canopy versus a sunshade. Because sunshades that I know typically more of a triangle or
There's artsy, there's arts, there's multiple. I looked it up, I was looking up sunshades and everything, types of multiple different ways of putting them up. We did it based on what was donated to us.
But did you
Made it
just
cheaper.
call it yourself a sunshade, or it's actually a sunshade? Or did
The
you-
frame was given to us, there was no material on the frame was given to us. We used it to put the sunshade on.
But my question is, when you purchased, or it was given to you, was it given to you under that it was a sunshade or a canopy? It just
Sunshade. Because we originally were gonna put up the same that the Montessori school has, theirs with the poles and the cables holding the sunshade. And she said, well, stuff these frames you can have, and you can do it. So, we did
My neighbor
fit
has
the frames.
sunshades that are attached to the structure of the house, and so I hit one pole. That's it.
Some do, some don't.
Yeah.
My question is, Jim, did they table that, or did they deny it, or did they table it? Because I was under the impression that they.
Troy's left, and disappointing because they would have been part of the vote on this. I'm going by memory. They said the current structure did not meet code.
That's what I thought.
And the discussion was, if you know, we've seen those ones you can purchase and electronically, they go out, you know, cover your area and go back. And I think Roger said there was some cost issue involved in that. And so the other aspect then was that they were gonna work with him on something that met the code, that had some kind of posting, permanent and whatever, where you still may be able to take the top down for weather or what have you, but what was up is not allowed in the gateway corridor.
Well, and that's not really for consideration tonight anyway. Is there any, are we ready for a motion? Or was there more?
Bring a motion. Is there a motion?
Yep, I'm gonna make a motion to approve the fence and the tables as stated.
Second.
Discussion? Thank you, Mel. All right, you got a card here?
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Preston?
Good evening, Todd Preston, 210 Academy. I just wanted to point out a couple of things. Number one, they're very clear when it comes to the gateway corridor. They're clear about canopies and temporaries, and it doesn't meet it, period. The fence also doesn't meet the gateway corridor standards. The Historic Preservation Board, for whatever reason that they have decided to approve this, they erred. They made a mistake. Because the building codes and gateway corridor are very clear and they're very specific. I have them over there, I can read it, but I think that you all should read it. So, this is the gateway corridor. Fences have to have architectural caps on them. They have to have setbacks. They have to meet the design specifications of the building. They have to be aesthetically pleasing. They're very specific. I can't understand why the Historic Preservation Board, I can assume, but I can't understand why they said, well, we don't really regulate fences because it's not on the perimeter. I just want you to be clear and understand the precedent you're setting here tonight when you say, we're going to allow this because it's not on the perimeter. Because when you do, you are changing your codes by doing that. You are saying to the next person, hey, you put a split rail fence, no problem, it's not on the perimeter. Last guy did it, you can do it. This is what you're doing. Follow the rules or change the rules. You, as a commission want to allow a variance, saying, this is the Legion, it's a great organization, they've been here for 90 years, we want them to have a fence. We're going to make an exception, we're going to give them a variance. The next person that comes along and puts up a fence says, he can't say, I'm putting it up because they put it up. Because you did it the proper way. They asked for a variance, an exception, and you gave it to them. If you allow this fence, now as it stands, it does not meet the building code for the gateway corridor, period. And Historic Preservation Board was wrong. Read it. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Well, Historic Preservation Board is our governing body that.
No, they're not. They're advisory board.
There are governing forms us, which means that they advise us on issues and what needs to be done. Now, I don't understand why Congress has decided to use the American Legion to come after me and drag the Legion through all this just to attack me, because that is exactly what he is doing. And when you get through a lot of the stuff that is going on, he isolated after just the American Legion when there are approximately 6 other similar structures in the gateway corridor that we cannot find permits for that have been up more than a year or more, possibly. I think one of them's been up there for at least 5 or 6 years. So why is he targeting the American Legion? Because he was after creating problems for me. He won't admit that, but that is what it is. It's all been done by him.
I think that Todd Preston is doing this because he is a stickler for the rules. He's always been a pain in the butt when it comes to that. And I think he knows the codes like inside.
Then why didn't he go after the other ones 5 years ago? Why did he wait till now?
Can you bring the temperature down?
Why didn't you go after the other ones?
We have an ordinance, we have a gateway, we have procedures. If every person that was out of compliance and no one complained about it, then it's on us, it's on them. If this is an issue up before the city, the advisory board is what approved it. In every case where there's an advisory board, when it comes to us, city commission, the buck stops with us, no matter what the advisory board said. So I'm just clarifying that. But that being said, there's a motion on the floor and there's a second.
Mr. City Administrator, could you please read that section of ordinance aloud on the fences and the gateway corridor? I'm trying to pull it up on my phone, but you may be faster, so that we may hear it.
I think it stops.
I'm sorry, did I say Administrator, not Mr. Attorney? Forgive me, it's late.
There you have it.
That's what I said, I knew he had a copy of it.
That's what he has out of the ocean.
What is it?
40702-6.
He just moved.
Those are the two, anything else that's 408-0. Is this one part of the, this is the second page, because this one has the fence on it. So I'm assuming that's the 408-00.
This is the gateway corridor standards for fences, right there.
Isn't that should be 5.04.08? That's the gateway.
That's what the other one is.
Huh?
That's what the other one is, isn't it?
Gateway's 5.04.
This one's commercial fences, the 40702.
Right, that's what I have right here, 5.0404.
5.04.08.
Yes.
You have two of them.
Yes.
That's what I was asking. Yeah, because it's cut off at the top. Sorry.
Fencing, design and construction quality of fence, screen, privacy, garden wall. Important visual reflections of community character and quality. Fence and wall design shall conform to the following requirements. Fence, screen, privacy, and garden wall shall be designed to be consistent with principal structures. Such design shall include the use of similar materials, colors, finishes as a principal structure. The requirement may be modified upon application to the city commission where the applicant demonstrates and the city commission or designee determines that a change in material, color, finishes will result in enhanced city aesthetics. Fences, screens, privacy, and garden walls shall be architecturally designed with offsets, raised elements, and landscape pockets to avoid an expansive, monolithic, or monotonous appearance. For privacy fences adjacent to roadways, it shall have one landscape pocket within 50 linear feet. The landscape pocket must be a minimum of 1 full panel length wide and 50% panel length depth. For example, an 8-foot panel would create an 8-foot by 4-foot pocket. Pocket landscapes must be shown on site plans, and canopy trees are encouraged within the landscape pockets. For chain link fencing is required or approved. Such fencing shall be black or green vinyl. Posts and rails shall be black or green vinyl. This requirement may be modified upon application to the city commission, where the applicant demonstrates in the city commission or says need determines that design or location warrants the use of other color finishes. Landscape berms may be utilized in lieu of fence or walls where the applicant demonstrates in the city commission or designate finds the berms will result in an equivalent aesthetic appearance. What I was looking for, the one thing I can't find, what's the definition of fence? That's the thing that's missing. And I think that's what the sort of, most of us think of a fence as along the perimeter of property, or within some sort of proximity to the perimeter of property. And what we're talking about here is those fence-looking posts, the fencing area that's in close to go around where the seating is.
Yeah.
So you're in from the property. Does that meet the definition of fencing? And I was trying to find where do we define where a fence is, where a fence has to be located, or anything like that, like a certain proximity. A fence shouldn't be further back than so many feet from the property line. That's what I was looking for.
And that's one of the things that they said that it was aesthetically pleasing to them on the appearance of the fence.
And I mean, obviously, when I read through, there are various places where it says unless approved otherwise by the commission or whatever it is. But what I was kind of flipping through is to say, does this actually meet the definition of fence? Because of where it's approximately located on the property. That's the question.
Based on what you said there, it also does not violate the gateway corridor, and the historic board had the authorization to approve it and recommend it for their approval to us.